You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
Good evening. My name is Peter Basserman, Chairman of Branford's Inland Wetland Commission. It is June 13th, 2024. It is 7 o'clock. We have a regular meeting of the Inland Wetland Commission this evening. The meeting is being conducted with the Zoom platform in accordance with Public Act 22-3. We have Branford Community Television recording, so we would ask that you be mindful of keeping your presence centered in the screen so that people can associate the face with the sound. The agenda for tonight's meeting is posted on the town's website. The updated version was released on June 11th. That replaces the agenda previously released on June 5th. Material for tonight's meeting was also posted on the town's website and in the Dropbox associated with the Inland Wetland Commission, and the Dropbox identification is listed on that agenda. We have next a roll call for the commissioners, and I see we have 5 commissioners with us this evening. Commissioner Begeman.
Commissioner Begman present.
Commissioner Amrad.
Commissioner Armrad present.
Commissioner Goklowski. Commissioner Goklowski. Microphone may be muted, David.
Wasn't muted. I don't think the microphone's working. You might have to call in, David.
While we're figuring out the audio with Commissioner Goklowski, Commissioner Papantonis.
Commissioner Papantonis here.
David, you want to call in on the phone? Okay, hopefully Commissioner Goklowski will join us quickly. Let's see. We also have 2 members of staff present. We have Inland Wetland Staff and Enforcement Officer Jamie Frederick.
Present.
And Inland Wetland Associate Katie Blanchette.
Present.
Great. We have a quorum for this evening's meeting. So all commissioners that are present are seated for discussion this evening. Is there any commissioner who needs to recuse themselves from any of the items on the agenda this evening? Okay. Does the town have, does town staff have any changes to this evening's agenda?
Not at this time.
Before we move on to the minutes, David, are you able to call in Commissioner Goklowski?
Got a phone joining now.
Can you hear me?
Now we can. Better, mute the computer. Great. All right, we have the minutes from the May 23rd regular meeting of the Inland Wetland Commission. Those again were mailed out and in the Dropbox. And do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
This is Commissioner Begman. I make a motion to approve the minutes from the regularly scheduled meeting on May 23rd, 2024.
And is there a second to that motion?
Commissioner Papantonis second.
Any further discussion? Any abstentions on those minutes? All in favor? Indicate by saying aye.
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 Any rejections? All right. Minutes are approved. First up on the agenda this evening, we have public hearing, item 2, Inland Wetland 240202, 1 to 17 Beacon Hill Road and Beacon Hill Road, formerly part of property known as 83 Rose Hill Road, which is a new active residential community. Looks like this is postponed to the 27th of June meeting. Jamie, do you have some comments on why we're extending that to the 27th?
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent, the public hearing notices required by the applicant were not sent out in time, so the public hearing was rescheduled to June 27th, so those notices could be completed.
Okay. Now we move on to the enforcement activity. Minute. So we have item 3, the enforcement part A, which is a notice of violation for 38 Howard Avenue, retaining wall and associated activities. And then there's a part B, which is a consideration to issue cease and correct orders to 38 and 34 Howard Avenue relative to the regulated activity that was conducted without a permit. Of note, an NOV has not been issued at this point for 34 Howard Avenue. For this evening's proceeding, both parts A and B will be considered collectively in the discussion for this agenda item. For purposes of a recap, a notice of violation was issued on April 24th, 2023 to the property owner of 38 Howard Avenue for activities which had occurred for which a required permit had not been obtained. The notice of violation identified 3 activities that required a permit: the construction of a retaining wall, the drainage modifications associated with it, and the disturbance of the slope above the watercourse. Corrective measures were requested to resolve the violations. The NOV is a process, is an initial step in discussing possible remedies for the violations. In many cases, the NOV is satisfied with the violator completing the required remedies in a timely manner. When the violations are not satisfied, a cease and correct or cease and desist order is issued and a just cause hearing is scheduled. A cease and correct order protects the Commission's ability to enforce corrective actions. Enforcement actions that may result from the issuance of that order may involve filing that order on the land records, fines, and court orders. In the case before us regarding this cease and correct order, the property owner submitted an application for the Commission to review. At that point, the Commission felt that the information included in an application would be more instructive to resolving the violations than a cease and correct order. Given the receipt of the application, which was the original application, the notice of violation was tabled until the application had run its course. A new application was subsequently filed on January 9th of this year. That's now considered the application. Over the course of time, there were numerous iterations to the application. A public hearing was opened. Testimony was provided by the applicant, its attorneys, and expert witnesses, interveners, and its experts, as well as members of the public. The hearing was closed on April 25th, 2024, and a decision was reached by this Commission on May 23rd, 2024, approving the application. Consequently, the Commission must now decide how to proceed with the notice of violation. While the permit for Inland Wetland 240102 was granted, it is essentially permission to proceed with the activity approved in that permit. It is not a requirement to proceed. There are conditions included in the permit that must occur to bring the site into compliance, and the Commission needs a vehicle to protect its ability to enforce that compliance. A cease and correct order is the suggested vehicle as per a memorandum prepared by inland wetland staff dated June 13th, 2024. It was sent to the commissioners for their review and is included in the Dropbox material for tonight's meeting. And for procedural protocol, inland wetland staff will read the memorandum now into the record. And I'll turn this over to Jamie Frederick. Jamie?
Jamie Frederick, Inland Wetland Agent. So the memo starts out with some general information. A notice of violation, also called an NOV, is an informal enforcement tool to start a conversation regarding activities in compliance with the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses regulations. A cease and correct order is a formal enforcement tool that is used when the commission is requiring action to be taken to correct a violation. Some general notes on past practice regarding cease and correct orders. It has been the general practice of the commission to issue an NOV to correct noncompliance with the regulations. A cease and correct order would typically, in past practice, be issued in two types of situations. An NOV has been ignored / not fully complied with, or when information presented to and reviewed by the commission results in a determination by the commission that corrective actions need to be taken beyond the scope of applying for a permit. A cease and correct order protects the commission's ability to enforce completion of corrective actions. A permit grants permission to complete actions. However, nothing requires a permit holder to complete the activities for which a permit has been granted. Generally, a cease and correct order is issued to streamline the corrective process, clearly identify for the violator and the commission the actions required to resolve the violation, protect the commission's ability to enforce should the violator stop completing the required actions. The commission has historically not filed a cease and correct order on land records unless compliance with the order is or becomes problematic. It has been the commission's past practice to warn a violator that a recordation is a potential outcome should noncompliance continue. If there are additional proposed activities which are beyond the scope of correcting the violation, those activities would be reviewed through a permit application process. Some notes specifically regarding 38 Howard Ave NOV. The April 24th, 2023 notice of violation issued to the owner of 38 Howard Ave required three things. 1, contact the Inland Wetland Office to schedule a site visit to discuss site conditions and next steps. 2, erosion control shall be installed as needed to prevent any further impact to the watercourse. 3, attend the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission meeting on May 11th, 2023 to discuss activities that have occurred, any additional activities which may be proposed, and resolution to the violation. It is noted that the notice of violation referenced only 38 Howard Ave. Discussion with the commission at the May 11th meeting resulted in a request that an application with site plan be submitted for review. An application was submitted and the commission tabled review of the notice of violation until after the application was reviewed, as long as there was no additional activity / change in impact to the wetland or watercourse. When reviewing the application, the commission became aware that activity extended onto a abutting property known as 34 Howard Ave and informed the applicant that they would need owner authorization for any corrective or other activity that extends onto the abutting property. Unable to secure owner authorization from 34 Howard Ave, the applicant withdrew the original application and subsequently submitted a new application for activity at 38 Howard Ave only. After multiple public hearings and 2 deliberation sessions, a permit was issued, IW number 240102, at the May 23rd, 2024 meeting. Consideration of whether to issue a cease and correct order has been mentioned numerous times throughout the review process since the NOV was issued in April of 2023. Staff added consideration of whether to issue a cease and correct order to either or both property owner, both owners at 38 Howard Ave and 34 Howard Ave to the February 22nd, 2024 IWA Commission meeting agenda based on the Commission's standard practice that a cease and correct order is appropriate when there remain outstanding activities to be completed to bring a site into compliance. This practice ensures all parties understand what activity is required to bring the site into compliance and protects the Commission's ability to enforce compliance. Staff recommendations. 1, issue a cease and correct order to 38 Howard Ave to assure completion of activities and permit IW number 240102 no later than September 30th, 2024. It is recommended that the cease and correct order content would include the following. Correct. 1, there are corrective activities permitted by permit IW 240102, particularly the plantings and slope restoration work shown on the approved site plan and required in the permit conditions, which offset or correct activities which commenced without a permit from the agency. As such, these activities shall be completed no later than September 30th, 2024. The order will remain in effect until such time that the corrective activities have been completed and the monitoring required for permit condition number 5 of the permit IW 240102 has been completed. To provide you with an opportunity to be heard by the commission and show cause why this order should not remain in effect, a hearing has been scheduled during the next regular meeting of the commission on June 27th, 2024. It is suggested that you or a representative be present. As statements of intent to remedy the violation and complete the activities permitted by the application IW 240102 have been made, the cease and correct order will not be filed on the land records unless there is a change in circumstances or the outlined timeframe is not complied with. And then the second recommendation is close the notice of violation for the reason that A, notice violation items 1 and 2 were completed. B, an application has been submitted to address or to approve, has been submitted and approved to address notice of violation item 3. And C, a cease and correct order has been issued to ensure that the permit activities, particularly the vegetation restoration and final site stabilization, are completed to fully resolve the violation. Additional considerations. 1, staff recommended deadline of September 30th, 2024 is based upon a consideration of the appropriate planting windows and an intent to minimize the time during which the site is not in compliance with either the approved plan or the pre-existing site condition. 2, the notice of violation has been on most of the commission's agendas for over a year. It is in the interest of all parties to provide a time frame for this matter to be resolved. 3, while activity has occurred on 34 Howard Ave, there is no indication that activity is directly impacting the wetlands/watercourse. And staff does not have any recommendations with respect to corrective actions which need to occur in the subject area at 34 Howard Ave to further advance the protection of wetlands/watercourses within the commission's jurisdiction. 4, staff notes that the commission notes for the commission's benefit that a recent Superior Court order related to 38 Howard Ave prohibits the owners of the property from conducting any site activity without the court's prior approval. The cease and correct order recommended in this memo, if approved by the commission, would be in all respects subject to the Superior Court's review. Town council will be available to answer questions regarding the court decision if necessary.
This is Commissioner Basserman. Thank you, Jamie, for reading that into the record. And I guess at this point, given the completeness of that memorandum, I'll make a motion that we adopt the recommendation of staff to issue a cease and correct order to 38 Howard Avenue to ensure compliance with activities in permit inland wetland 240102 to be completed no later than 9/30/2024, and that no cease and correct order be issued before Howard Avenue. In addition, with the issuance of the cease and correct order to 38 Howard Avenue, that the NOV issued on April 24, 2023 be lifted. Is there a second to that motion?
Commissioner Gokowski, I second that motion.
All right, that opens it up then to any discussion at this point. Any other commissioners have comments, or Commissioner Gokowski have comments regarding that motion that is on the table?
With Commissioner Papantonis, I want to raise an issue. We're telling the owners of 38 Howard Avenue that they have to complete the work by September 30th, but the court, there's a court order that everything needs to be approved by the court, and as a practical matter, I don't think that there's enough time for them to get court approval and then do what needs to be done.
This is Commissioner Bassman. I guess from my standpoint, we certainly, as indicated in the memorandum, will heed the wisdom of the court. And I'm not going to get into the game of trying to guess when the court would act or would not act. I think September 30th is a reasonable time frame, and if the court chooses to adjust that through its process, then so be it. Any other comments from the commissioner regarding the issuance of the cease and correct to 38, the no issuance of same order to 34, and the closure of the notice of violation, given the fact that we have an approved application and a cease and correct that's on the table?
This is Commissioner Goklowski. Is staff going to be monitoring the work that is being conducted on 38 Howard?
Jamie Frederick, in the wetland agent, the standard inspections required for the permit would occur.
My concern is in past practice with this particular applicant, they did not notify the office ahead of time prior to them conducting any activity. And I was just thinking it would be maybe wise on our part to do a surprise inspection at some point. Or a couple of them.
Jamie Frederick, in the wetland agent, the permit requires a contractor's acknowledgement form and initial erosion control inspection. I'm not sure. I think there's a couple of other inspections. I don't recall off the top of my head.
This is Commissioner Beck. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Commissioner Begeman.
This is Commissioner Begeman. So my understanding, I think, of this cease and correct is not that the applicant is doing anything wrong at this point. It is simply to give the commission ways to make sure that it gets, in a very difficult case that has come before us, that we have more power to make sure that it gets done the way the permit is saying that it should get done. Is that
Jamie Frederick, in the wetland agent? Yeah, it's not to say that the permit holder is not being compliant or going through the process. It's just to provide a structure and a time frame. And if there's further questions or concerns regarding the time frame and the court, then town council is present and can speak to that question.
Was that a question? Was that...
I'm not sure
I concur. I concur with what Chairman Basserman said. The cease and correct order would be, as every action that a municipal body or commission takes in this case, subject to review by the court, and the applicant would have to get approval from the court to conduct the activities that are required under the permit that was granted. And if the time frame established by the cease and correct was somehow objectionable, then I would suggest that the applicant is free to raise that issue with the court. I do agree with Chairman Basserman that it's difficult to speculate about whether or not there is enough time for the court to act. I just don't think it's prudent to offer opinions about that. I think there is a means by which that date can be addressed. And I would again concur with Chairman Basserman's point.
This Commissioner Bassman, any other concerns from the commissioners regarding the motion, the resolution, the establishment of the 27th of June for the just cause hearing? Obviously that is statutorily indicated, and I assume that staff will make sure that the cease and correct gets issued so that we can have such a just cause hearing on the 27th of June.
Commissioner Goklowski again. Is it the applicant's responsibility to notify the court of this resolution memorandum that we posed with the time frame that's being allotted, or is it the commission's or the town's responsibility to notify the court that we're expecting these actions to be completed no later than September 30th, 2024?
Would you like me to deal with this?
Yes, please.
Please.
Okay. Bill Aniskovich, Brenner Saltzman. The town is not a party to the litigation, and therefore it has no obligation to report to the court. It would be by the terms of the court's order, the obligation of the applicant to pursue approval of the court to conduct activities that are permitted pursuant to your action last month. So there is no obligation on the town or the commission, if you will, to report to the court. If the applicant wants to undertake any activity at the site, it needs the court's approval. The commission has merely given permission to conduct certain activities. Approval of those activities is within the jurisdiction of the court per the court's order.
This is Commissioner Bassman. Attorney Shansky, do you have a comment regarding that issue?
Jamie
that was
Frederick
raised
and the Wetland agent. I certainly think we should take comment, but I just question, can we take comment during while a motion is on the table? Is there any issue with doing that, town council? Oh, you're muted.
I think you got handed off a question, Attorney.
Generally speaking, the rule is once a motion's been made and seconded, that the comments are limited to the members of the commission.
Okay. Any other comments from the commission? I guess at this point we'll take a vote regarding that motion. Commissioner Goklowski.
Commissioner Goklowski, aye.
Commissioner Armrod.
Commissioner Ormrod, aye.
Commissioner Begeman.
Commissioner Begeman, aye.
Commissioner Papantonis.
Commissioner Papantonis, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye. Do we now have an opportunity for questions, Attorney Aniskovich?
Yes, I would say it's appropriate at this point to entertain questions or comments from others.
Attorney Shansky? Attorney Shansky, you have a comment?
Marjorie Shansky for Kim McCabe and Charles Watts. You have obviated the need and opportunity for me to comment.
Anybody else have comment at this point? Okay, then we will conduct a just cause hearing on the 27th of June. And as of this point, the notice of violation is now lifted. Next up on the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, just for purposes of my time, I am not aware of any other items on the agenda tonight that require my attendance, participation.
This is Chairman Bassman. I just have one question for staff. Do we need Attorney Yanukovych for Chestnut Street, Jamie, or not?
I would kind of defer to you, I guess, on that.
There's material that was provided by 142. Is it enough for us to consider that material this evening?
We're not at that item on the agenda, so I'm hesitant as to how much I should say at this point. Would it be possible to reach out to town council later if it's determined that, or is that too much to ask?
No. That's perfectly fine. I think it's actually efficient, and for me to log off and you let me know if you need me and I'll log back on. Not a problem at all. I don't want to waste time.
Works for me.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
No
Appreciate
problem. All right. Thanks, guys. Maybe I'll see you later.
All right, item 4, application for review, Inland Wetland 240401, 200 to 206 North Main Street, which is a new service building for Premier Kia. Any additional comments from staff regarding this item?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. Revised plans have been received and supplemental materials to address comments from both the town engineer and myself. I think at this point, things have been satisfactorily addressed for the commission's level of review. But certainly that's up to the commission to decide. So I think, I mean, we've already had a couple of presentations on this, so I think to maybe just quickly touch base on some of the changes would be helpful, particularly regarding the change in the material around the infiltrators. I think that's new from the last meeting, and perhaps the total stormwater calculations would be helpful. And then if the commission has any other questions, we can address those.
And a staff report is available when we get to that point. So let's have a brief overview of the changes, and then let's move to the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. Just for the record, I'm Mike Ott. I'm a licensed professional engineer and land surveyor with Summerhill Civil Engineers in Madison. Matt Davison from Davison Environmental is with us here tonight. I think if I remember right, Mr. Chairman, you had said that you might want to hear from Matt at the last meeting. So I'll give you a really brief overview of the changes. May I share my screen?
Please.
Okay. So there are two changes to the plans. I'm going to zoom in a bit here. And both have to do with the stormwater infiltration systems. We received, regarding the two stormwater treatment structures, one here, if you can see my cursor moving, and one here. We received information from the manufacturer that we had requested, and we simply changed the model number of the stormwater treatment structure, the same manufacturer, same type. We just changed the model number on the drawings and the appropriate detail for it to make sure that it had the correct internal capacity to bypass flows greater than the water quality flow. And then the second, so the only changes are the model number and the detail that's shown on the drawings. The detail looks exactly the same, just different dimensions, a different model number. The other change, and this is more significant, is that we did a couple things. We moved both stormwater infiltration systems here and here further back away from the wetland, more towards Route 1. And we did that as I was reading the new stormwater quality manual. I noticed they had a requirement, or I should say guidance, that stormwater infiltration systems should be a minimum of 50 feet from an inland wetland. So we did that. And the other probably most important thing we did is we called for on the plans to remove the fill material. If you recall, this site has been historically filled. We decided to call for the removal of the fill material within the limits of the stormwater infiltration systems, and the replacement of that fill material with a granular material that meets a certain infiltration rate. And on our drawings, in the details, and I'll see if I can switch to that sheet. Hopefully you'll be able to see the switch. Can the commission see now on my screen a typical section through the stormwater infiltration system?
Yes, thank you.
So we called for on the plans, both in plan view and here in the details, for the removal of the fill material, and as observed by the project engineer in the field, and the replacement of it with the proper material, and the field testing, the on-site field testing of the in-place material by a specified infiltration test method to ensure that after placement of the fill, that we have achieved the design infiltration rate for the systems. So for that, and that applies to both infiltration systems. So those.
Excuse the interruption. This is Commissioner Basserman. Is that because of recent changes in the stormwater manual guidance, or is there some other reason? Because for some time now we've talked about that broken up concrete, etc., as not being a problem.
Yep. So there is, Mr. Chairman, there is actually language in the new stormwater quality manual that indicates that I want to make sure I can't remember the exact term, but basically the situation we have, broken concrete and brick debris, should not be used in the area of an infiltration system. It doesn't give a reason why, or any reasoning behind that, but we were trying to comply to the manual, and so we called for its removal and replacement. So all of this, the removal would be observed by, of course, it can be observed by town staff, but it'll certainly be observed by the project engineer, and also the placement and the infiltration testing will be observed by the project engineer. And we called for the infiltration testing to be done by a certified materials testing laboratory. So in other words, an independent laboratory would perform the field infiltration system. You can see that note 3 here, if you can read that I zoomed in on. So those are the.
And that infiltration rate of 10 inches per hour, that was the same prior to the most recent change in stormwater management?
Yes, that's the design infiltration rate that we designed for, knowing of course that when you have debris, the rate would be much higher. So we were conservatively, leaving the debris fill, we were conservatively designed. And Matt, I know Jamie would like to say something, but I just wanted to offer, Matt, if the commission has any questions of Matt, again, he is here also.
This is Commissioner Begemon. So you're doing there was no perk testing on this site, correct? I mean, there were some test pits, but there was no perk testing done because of the nature of the material. And so now what we're getting is you're actually testing the area where the stormwater is going to go once that fill material has been put in. So you know that it works.
Correct. And so that's correct. Yes, ma'am. Yep.
Thanks.
So those are the two changes. I think, as Jamie said, I think we've addressed all the comments that pertain, of course, to your commission and this application. I think the only thing that Jamie, I think, suggested that I speak about is the comparison of the peak rates of discharge of stormwater runoff. And I can do that now if the commission is okay with the changes to the plans. So
Why don't we do that?
Okay, so I will bring up, just bear with me one sec. I'll see if I can bring up the revised summary. Okay, I think I have it here. Sorry, just having a little trouble sharing my screen again. Huh.
I've got it too, so I'll just screen share it.
If you could, Jamie, I apologize. All of a sudden I cannot share my screen.
Everyone seeing it?
Oh, I see why. I now see why, but thank you. Yeah, that's it, Jamie. So if you, I don't know if the commission can see these numbers, but in the existing condition today, you can see in the first table the peak rate, the computed peak rates of stormwater runoff. They range from 4.4 to 12.1. In the developed condition, as we've noted in our summary in the narrative portion, the major portion of the site gets directed to the two stormwater infiltration systems. And those are the results of the hydrologic routing of the stormwater through those systems are shown in the next two tables, DC2 and DC3. And you can see the difference in the peak discharge rates. If you look at the routed outflow line, the routed outflow row, I should say, in each column, you can see how low they are. So for instance, for the 25-year storm, which is what the systems are designed for, the DC2 system, the inflow to the system in the developed condition is 5.2 CFS. The routed outflow, because of the exfiltration or the infiltration of the stormwater runoff into the underlying soils, is 0.7 CFS. So, and if you remember, the systems are designed to completely temporarily store. The storage reservoir is large enough to store all of the runoff volume from the 25-year storm temporarily as it infiltrates into the underlying soils. So today, surface water runoff goes over the site and down the slope to the wetland. In the developed condition, it no longer does that. It goes into the infiltration systems, infiltrates through the soil, and enters the groundwater that moves toward the same wetland. So you can see, it's kind of just by inspection, you can see how low the numbers are. And remember, the systems are not designed for the 100-year event. They're designed to be able to hold and temporarily store the complete runoff volume from a 25-year event and slowly infiltrate that back into the soils, enter the groundwater back to the wetland. And the
This is
notes,
Commissioner Basserman. Yeah, on the staff report, Jamie, on page 2, notes from other departments, June 5th, from town engineer. It says, it is noted that the comment regarding runoff totals has not been fully addressed. Are the comments that we just heard addressing that particular concern from town engineer?
Jamie Frederick in the Wetland Agent. Yes, these comments are meant to address that. Sorry.
So this was developed since the engineer's concern, or did we know that this was raised at the last meeting and therefore was in response to that?
I noted that because it was one of the comments that the town engineer had made, and I think he just wanted to make sure that the commissioners were comfortable with interpreting this table because it's not exactly
Right.
easy to understand as a layperson.
Okay. But
Jamie,
from your standpoint, staff, Commissioner Bassman, this is from your standpoint, Jamie, this item has been addressed.
Yeah, the calculations and everything have been addressed. The concern that the town engineer had was the ability of the commission to understand the information that was provided.
To me, the explanation that we just heard kind of makes that a lot easier to interpolate.
And this is Commissioner Begemon. There was something in the more recent material about the overflow. What happens to the overflow of more than a 25-year storm? Can you just explain what happens to that, Mister?
Yes, we talked about that at the last meeting.
I don't remember.
We provided for the safe conveyance of overflow during the 100-year event, or an event greater than the 25-year, down the slope by reinforcing the slope, if you remember, with permanent turf reinforcement mats. If you recall, that's been on the plans for a couple of revisions now. We discussed it at the last meeting.
Yes, I recall now. Thank you, Commissioner Begemon.
Any other changes that you wish to comment on, sir?
No, Mr. Chairman.
It's Commissioner Bassman. Any other comments from the commission, either as a result of the review that we just heard, or is it at this point timely to go through the staff report, especially the conditions for consideration? Jamie, this is Commissioner Bassman. Jamie, typically, I know you've gone through line by line with the staff report. The fact that this is available and was mailed out, etc. Can we circumvent that, or is process going to dictate here that we need to verbalize the potential conditions?
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. I think generally speaking, the commission at least kind of reads through the conditions for consideration. And I think, when the report was available and commissioners' ability to review it in advance dictates whether the whole report's gone through or not. Anyone that is looking at the report or has looked at the report can see that the decision does have to be made this evening, or an extension of time must be granted from the applicant. So,
This is Commissioner Bassman. Does any commissioner have any outstanding questions that have not been resolved, either via presentation, testimony previously received, or the item addressed in the staff report as prepared by Inland Wetland staff. Does anybody want to add any additional conditions to the staff report for consideration? I think we're ready to vote. Okay, on Inland Wetland 240401 206 North Main Street. Somebody want to make a motion regarding this application?
Jamie, can you share the document so we can see it?
Yeah. Maybe.
This is Commissioner Begeman. I'll make a motion that we approve Inland Wetlands 240401 200 and 206 North Main Street, the new service building for Premier Kia, with the staff report prepared for tonight's meeting 6/13/24, with the suggested conditions and all of the standard provisions and standard conditions and general provisions of all permits.
Commissioner Bassman, is there a second to Commissioner Begeman's motion?
Commissioner Gopowski, I second that.
Any further discussion or amendments to the motion? All right, we'll take a vote on that motion. Commissioner Omrod?
Commissioner Ormrod, aye.
Commissioner Papatonis?
Commissioner Papantonis, aye.
Commissioner Begeman?
Commissioner Begeman, aye.
Commissioner Gokowski?
Commissioner Gopowski, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye. All right. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Next up, under application for review, Inland Wetland 2403 22 Howard Avenue. This is the replacement of a crumbling retaining wall. Any updates, Jamie, on this?
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland agent. So at the last meeting, the commission reviewed this kind of for the first time, subsequent to authorization from the abutting property owner, which was required for access and erosion controls related to the construction activities. At that meeting, the commission wanted some more information on the process of removing the wall and the site plan to be kind of readdressed to clarify some of the erosion control notes and add the stockpile location and approximate location of the offsite wetland / watercourse. So we have received a revised sketch on the pre-existing survey for the property. We've received a project narrative. I've gone out to the site to view the wetland location firsthand relative to the area and proposed activity. And I've done a staff report, and I've also added some aerial images to help potentially put into context where the regulated areas are relative to the activity. So if the commission wants, I can start by maybe sharing one of those aerial images so that way everyone can kind of get oriented. All right. And then also the applicant is present if the commission has any questions for them. All right, so the first image you're seeing here is a GIS map. 22 Howard Ave is underneath where my hand cursor is right now. The proposed retaining wall replacement runs along the.
Jamie, this is Commissioner Begman. We're seeing your
Oh, wait
screen
a
there.
minute. I got a canoe, no retaining wall.
Sorry,
It's a pretty view.
wrong screen.
It's really pretty.
All right, how about now?
Perfect.
That's
Yes.
it. Thank you.
All right. So 22 Howard Ave is under where the cursor is. Driveway retaining wall runs along the shared property line, just north of that driveway. So I added the GIS map because it has the 2016, I think, LiDAR contours to kind of show what the grade is. So essentially downhill from the proposed activity would be through the abutting property to Rustic Road. So, you know, for construction purposes and erosion control purposes, like I said earlier, authorization from that property owner was required. The stockpiling is proposed to be placed on the driveway. And per representation at the last meeting, all activity would be done during a dry period. And you can see there's a pond located kind of southwest of the property. And then there's a water course that flows kind of northeasterly. And it's kind of hard to tell where it is through here, but it is definitely off of the subject property. The property owner did show me the pin for the corner of the property, which does appear to pretty much align with the approximate property line shown on this map. And then the water course continues in this direction. And then I'm just going to slide down to an aerial image from March of this year. It kind of shows in a little bit more detail, but I don't have contours available on this map. So again, you can see the water course and you can kind of see it looks like it meanders this way. And then through here. So that's where the resource is relative to the proposed retaining wall replacement. Let me just project narrative. So we have a brief project narrative. Essentially install erosion controls, demolish and haul away existing concrete wall with a mini excavator and hoe ram hammer as needed. Remove and haul off materials behind the wall. Any reuse materials will be stockpiled on the driveway of 22 Howard, surrounded by hay bales as shown on the plan. Install crushed stone footing for the new wall as shown on plans. Install new wall blocks and weep holes using drain stone, filter fabric, geogrid, and fill per plan. Grade/repair area at the bottom of wall using crushed stone or materials approved by neighbor. Grade the area at the top of the wall. Historically, we have had rose bushes with cedar bark mulch in the 4-foot wide planting area between the wall and the driveway. We have not decided final plantings as of yet, but the area will be mulched. So I think that last section is in response to this area in between the driveway and the wall. And then the crushed stone or other materials approved by neighbor is for any area that is disturbed below the wall while the construction work is occurring. And I do kind of have a general condition that can be considered to just kind of further codify that area needs to be stabilized at the end of the project.
Commissioner Bassman, Jamie, a number of those items said per plan.
Yep, 1 minute.
Do we have the details for instance, the before grade and the after grade?
We don't have a grading plan. My understanding is that the wall is to be replaced and the kind of finished grade is predominantly to remain as is, but I would defer to the applicant to clarify if that is correct or if I am incorrectly representing the intent.
This is Commissioner Bassman, can you put back the sheet that you had up before the detailed sheet that is, yeah, that one. You know, do we have detail regarding the filter fabric and the geogrid and all that, or is this what we have?
Yeah, so Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, there's this plan, and then there's also the so that the wall is of a height where it requires a building permit, which requires an engineered plan. So we have the specific calculations regarding the height of the wall, and, loads, and, let's see, the geogrid, type of number.
Commissioner Bassman, the town engineers reviewed this and signed off or not?
I believe, so there was a building permit application, what am I doing? Submitted, which I believe all departments except for inland wetlands at this point has signed off on. So, I believe all other departments are satisfied at this time.
Jamie, Commissioner Gopowski, I know this is probably going to sound like a redundant question, but is there approval from the neighbor on file for this work to commence?
There's authorization, and I believe the neighbor is present, this evening.
Yeah.
Commissioner Bassman, who might that be?
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland agent. The abutting property owner is Suter.
Okay.
Are the property owners that are adjacent to the applicant's property present? And if they are, can you please acknowledge?
You're mute.
She's asking her. I think she's asking her son to help her unmute it.
Okay.
Okay.
You can hit the space bar, Ms. Suter, and that should unmute you.
Should I go knock on her door?
No.
Hi, that wasn't the issue. My phone was ringing, so it wasn't allowing me to. My cell phone was ringing, so it wasn't allowing me to say anything one way or another. Hello, everybody. I'm Sarah Suter. Yes, good evening, sirs and madams. I gave my permission as far as, yes. Did you have questions for me, or? Because I really don't know the logistics as far as how all of this pertains to the Inland Wetlands Commission, or how any of it pertains with anything really. So I would really, I'm glad that you all are weighing in on this, because I am not an engineer. I'm a property owner who's extremely concerned about the situation, but I don't really know a lot about pertaining to building walls or anything. So I'm listening. Thank you.
Yeah, my question, and this is Commissioner Gopowski. My question is that are you allowing your neighbors to, because they're going to have access to your property, from what I can see on to reconstruct this crumbling wall on your property. Do you have any issues with them going on your property to do this work and to make your property look pretty after the fact?
I don't have any issues about them being on my property. My property being pretty is certainly a concern to me in a sense, but we've been looking at this wall since we moved in to this property since 1980. So my main concern is really because this is inland wetland. Hey, Tim, I can't have you, honey, I can't have you calling my phone, because then I can't. Honey, sorry, folks. I am really concerned about our property, thank you, the wall on this property being constructed so that for future generations, this property will not be flooded. It will not have water in our basement. It will not be have a situation where it's not going to be compliant to the inland wetland situation, which is on this property for future generations. So as far as it being pretty, yes, that's fine and wonderful. But my my main concern is goes a little higher than that. It's a higher calling than that, because this whole neighborhood is affected by inland water. Everything that's being done to the property, my property, whether it's across the street from my property where the drainage thing was covered up by the people who filled it up, who were given permission somehow to pave that whole drainage situation on their property. Everything's affected. So I'm just concerned about the whole picture, the bigger picture. So that's why I'm deferring to you folks who know better about inland water situations.
This is Commissioner Bassman. Jamie, do we have written permission from Ms. Suter? Okay. And how far is the water course from the wall?
70 feet.
It's a ways away, but I want to tell you that 2/3 of our backyard floods when it rains.
Ms. Suter, hang on. I was specifically asking Jamie Frederick, inland wetland staff, for the distance.
Okay.
Jamie Frederick, and the wetland agent. I don't know the exact distance because I believe the wetland for the most part is offsite from both properties. We don't have a wetland delineation, but my best guess is that it's about 50 feet at its closest point from the wetland. So that, let me just. Screen one. Okay. So from about this point here to the estimated location of the water course back here, I estimate to be about 50 feet.
And this is Commissioner Bassman, and the hydrology would show which way the water flows from the driveway toward the rear?
When you say from the driveway, what do you mean?
Well, pardon me, from where the retaining wall is.
So that's why I've also added this map. So you can see that the contours, they kind of drain out this way and then towards the back.
Okay. Got it. Mm-hmm. And can we post the staff report?
Is this for this application or the last one? Last. Okay, so went over that history last time, so I don't think we need to do it again. I did add here that I've been out to both sites now, and that I estimate the wetland to be about 50 feet or more from the closest point of the wall replacement and the direction that water would flow. Erosion controls. Stay
More like 70 feet.
I'm sorry?
It's more like 70 feet from the beginning of the wall. It's 50 feet from the beginning of the wall back to the property corner, and then another 20 plus or minus to the water course. Now the wetlands is a whole different, since they're not delineated, we don't know about that.
Right. I was being conservative with my 50 feet estimate. Stormwater drainage is proposed to remain the same as existing drainage. Drainage information is provided on the retaining wall construction plan. Landscaping will need to be removed to replace the wall. It is staff's opinion that the required vegetation removal should have minimal, if any, impact on the wetland. As long as the area is stabilized upon completion of the project, there will be no canopy removed that would be, shading that wetland area. Building permit application appears to have been signed off by all their applicable departments. Some notes since the last meeting. Sketch and survey has been updated to add temporary stockpile location and approximate location of wetland / watercourse. I haven't showed that yet. I can if you want. Project narrative has been submitted. We've looked at that. We've looked at the aerial imagery, and we've gone over the fact that I've been out to the site. So
this is Commissioner Bassman. Jamie, we're removing a wall here, correct?
There's a wall that's proposed to be removed and replaced.
Like for like,
What?
the same materials?
No better.
The existing wall is a cinder block wall that will be replaced by a Versalock wall, more modern.
Yep. But essentially same kind of material. Okay.
Same place, same
Yep.
same height, same everything. Yes.
Got it. Okay. Anything else, Jamie? Did we go over all the possible conditions,
Not yet.
considerations?
So recommended considerations for conditions would be inspections for initial erosion controls. Clarification, erosion controls shall be located as close to activity as possible, considering existing conditions, ledge and construction access needs. 2 hay bales shall be installed in accordance with the CT guidelines for soil erosion and sediment control. And a final inspection. 2, all work shall be conducted during a dry period with no forecasted rain, as represented at the May 23rd, 2024 meeting. And 3, a tarp shall be on hand if needed to cover the stockpile to protect against erosion and windblown material if needed. And then 4, any bare soil areas from construction activities shall be stabilized with vegetation, crushed stone, or other measures approved by the duly authorized agent and the standard conditions and general provisions of all permits.
This is Commissioner Bassman. Do we have a sense of how long the activity is to remove and replace the wall?
It's estimated at 5 days.
This is Commissioner Begeman. That terminology that's used for grading of the areas at the top of the wall and the bottom of the wall, I wonder if it's that really the grading is to maintain the current slopes, correct? The current grades. So the grading you're doing sounds like it's minimal. It's where you had to dig up a little bit to get at the base of the wall and then putting in the fill to get back up to that same line, etc.
Absolutely minimal. At the top of the wall, we're going to grade back to the driveway, away from the neighbor's property. And at the base of the wall, we'll grade back from her foundation to the wall.
Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Bassman, does any commissioner feel that we need to augment the potential considerations with any other control measures? It's Commissioner Bassman. Jamie, do we have as part of the standard conditions when the erosion controls can be removed? Or is that included in some?
So usually that's kind of addressed at the final inspection, but we do have under the standard conditions, erosion controls are to be removed and properly disposed of once earth is stable.
And stability is affirmed by staff?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody want to make a motion regarding 40303?
May I say something for a second, please? Is it possible?
Sure. Make it brief, please.
I'd be glad to. I would respectfully ask Jamie, would you please put up the aerial image you had of the property where the water that showed where the water is flowing in that area? Okay, thank you. I do want to say something that is not evident on this, and that is that our property is significantly lower than that of 22 Howard Avenue. And just because of all, if you can see all of this, that I'm assuming that these gold colored lines are where water is flowing in the area. Is that true?
No, the lines are showing the elevations. So basically
Okay.
each line is showing a foot step down.
Okay, okay, that's helpful as well. Okay, so you can see how much lower our property is. I did also want to say to the Inland Wetland Commission that I would love to have you come out and take a look at all of this, because our property, 2/3 of our property, of our back property floods when we have these torrential downpours that we've been having. That are so incongruent with, usual weather. Our entire backyard will be marshland and raised. There'll be water. There'll be just much more water than we've ever had as a backup from that waterway that flows through our property and down into our neighbor Al Lang's property. So I would love for, and also I would love the commission for instance, Commissioner Basserman, with all due respect, if you could come out sometime, or somebody could come out with Jamie, and you could take a look at this situation and also what's been caused by the activity across the street from us, because it's directly impacting our property. And I think it is inland wetland property at this point. That whole area of the neighborhood is. And also our property, you can see on the aerial, our property is set back quite a ways from the Troidals property, the 22 Howard Avenue. And so we are less than 50 feet from that waterway that goes down the rear of our property. So I just wanted to call that up to attention, so that if possibly people, members of the Inland Wetland Commission could come out and just do a study of the area, and just to see what's going on back there. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Jamie, do you have a comment on the water flow here and the wetland issue?
Jamie Frederick, Inland Wetland Agent. So, I mean, the commission doesn't do site visits unless they're conducted relative to a pending proceeding.
Okay.
If you're experiencing increases in flooding, I mean, there's many reasons why that might be happening. And if you think it's related to a change in circumstance, I mean, we can reach out to the office, and we can see if it pertains specifically to something we have jurisdiction over, and or if it's perhaps something that if it's related to like town drainage or something, it might be appropriate to talk with the town engineering department. So we can follow up on that if you have further concerns there. But it's not something that the commission generally investigates.
I understand that. I just want to be clear. I'm fine with the wall. I just think that in the interest of the entire neighborhood, not only just the situation over at 3438, but the entire neighborhood, it might be a good idea for the commission to come out in some capacity. I don't know what that might be, but just to check out the area, just because I know the Lang's property is impacted by this whole thing as well. So I'm just throwing that out there. I'm fine with the wall. The Troidals have given us a lot of details on this, and I'm really fine with that. I just am reacting to a higher calling of wanting to look out for the neighborhood as a whole, and not only and actually the neighbor to the other side of Al is also impacted by all of this. So I'm just mentioning that. I see Jim Suter has a hand raised. He's also in on this. If you see James Suter, he has also a question, please.
Yes, I recognize that. Mr. Suter, would you like to make a comment regarding the activity proposed here?
I think he may have
Mr. Suter, you
froze.
need to unmute.
Looks like he's frozen.
I'll tell him.
Jamie Frederick, in the Wetland Agent. So just to put this all in context for the commission and regarding the proceeding that's before the commission right now. So, drainage, flooding, can fall within the purview of the commission as it relates to the activities that are being proposed. I think in this particular case, the commission is looking at replacing a replacement of an existing retaining wall with drainage to mimic what is existing condition. So I'm not sure that there's, relative to this project, kind of, as was represented, I believe in those comments, that there's concerns necessarily relative to this project and those drainage concerns. I'm not saying there's not drainage concerns in the neighborhood. I'm sure that there are, and I have heard from other people in the neighborhood. And I know the engineering department has received some comments. So again, if there's anything that you think is related to town drainage, I would suggest reaching out to them.
This is Commissioner
Bassman, and there's nothing on the record with this proceeding in this application that would indicate that the deconstruction and replacement of the wall would aggravate the situation. Mr. Suter, you wish to make comment?
I think he's
I
frozen.
think he is frozen. I'm not sure why that is. Because he often thinks of things that I don't. So I wish that we could have a minute to see if,
This is Commissioner Begman. I'm ready to make a motion that if we want to wait a minute or so, it's up to the others.
This is Commissioner Gopowski.
He's there now.
I think he's unfrozen. Mr. Suter, will you wish to make comment? Now's
there
the
he
time.
is.
You're muted.
You're muted. He's on the move.
I'm telling him to unmute.
Hello?
This is important to us, if you don't mind. Okay,
You're
thank you.
unmuted. Go.
Okay, I have a concern over the map that's being shown. Is that the property back line next to the water course accurate? Because it's drawn across the deck that we have on the property.
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland agent, it is approximate. I do not know if it's accurate.
This is Commissioner Begman. I think that's kind of immaterial to what we're talking about. Thank you.
Well, it could be, but that the property is flooding, and this property is lower than the property next to it, and there's quite a bit of flooding that is coming onto the property, not just staying in that ditch there. So I asked the question because I didn't believe the line was where it is placed on the map.
Property line?
On the map that was shown.
Are you asking about the property line?
Yes.
Jamie Frederick.
Yes, that is accurate. That's Larry Fisher.
On the, I think we're talking about two different
rustic roads.
So I think the map that was being discussed here specifically referenced the deck is the aerial image map, which has approximate property lines and is not a survey, whereas the site plan that was sketched on a survey of 22 Howard Ave.
This is Commissioner Basserman. Commissioner Begerman, you were ready to make a motion?
Yes, Commissioner Begeman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve inland wetland 240303, 22 Howard Avenue, the reconstruction of a retaining wall. With the staff report that was revised 6/11/24 with the recommendation, with the recommended conditions, the standard conditions, and the general provisions of all permits.
Commissioner Ormrod, I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
No.
We'll take a vote. Commissioner Gopowski?
Commissioner Gopowski, aye.
Commissioner Papatonis?
Commissioner Papantonis, aye.
Commissioner Ormrod?
Commissioner Ormrod, aye.
Commissioner Begerman?
Commissioner Begeman, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye. Inland wetland 240303 is approved.
Thank you for all of your time.
Thank you, people.
Thank you.
Next up, inland wetland 240401 for Liza Lane site improvements due to a change in use. And there is also a staff report on this item as well. Jamie, we have some updates.
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent, revised plans and materials have been received in response to town engineer and in the Wetland Agent comments. We do have the applicant present to give a presentation. I don't believe the commission has received a presentation on this yet, because comments were at one point issued and they wanted to wait to address those comments before presenting everything to the commission. I have drafted a staff report in response to the revised materials that have been received. The application is actionable, and the commission can continue it to the June 27th meeting, if you still have outstanding questions that have not been addressed by the application materials. So unless there's any other questions for me, I see a representative of the applicant has their hand raised and I'm sure is looking to start the presentation.
The floor is yours, Mr. Garcia.
If I can share a screen, please.
Yep, you should be allowed to.
Okay, I think you can see that. Hold the phone. Okay, is that the one? Can you see that?
Yep, we see the existing conditions.
Okay, for the record, my name is John Paul Garcia. I'm a licensed professional engineer, land surveyor, licensed to practice in the state of Connecticut, office in 190 Fairwood Road, the town of Bethany. I'm here representing the owner of 4 Lisa Lane. What this is an existing 0.6 acre site south of Lisa Lane at the end of a turnaround. It presently has an existing metal building on it. The site at present, I'm going to blow this up just a little, is approximately half paved. And the back part of the site, can you see my cursor?
Yes.
Okay, that the back side is gravel. There is a drainage swale along the south side, along the east side, and there is a drainage easement to the town on the west side. What they're proposing to do is repave the existing front of the property and add new pavement to the rear of the property. This is sheet S1. For stormwater management, we have been in touch with the town engineer, and we have installed a underground system, conventional infiltrator system that's designed to attenuate the 2, 10, 25, and 100-year storms, and then retain and treat the water quality volume, which is the first 1 inch, which is approximately 90% of the storms. The overflow from that heads to the east into a level spreader into the wetland. We pick up some new drainage and from the roof, and we tie that into the existing catch basins. We put in some new catch basins, so everything is upgraded. At present, there is no water treatment on site, and can you see this? This is the one page from the stormwater quality management report, which was turned into the town. The pre-development and the post-development flows were reduced by between 30 and 50% by adding the underground detention system. We've had this reviewed by the town engineer and by staff. They offered us comments a couple of days ago. We got them back to them yesterday. And we've addressed all the comments. It's a relatively easy and small site. The intent of this is to be used for a car dealer. A car rental area. There's no on-site maintenance of the vehicles. The only thing that's occurring on-site is washing the vehicles. The car is leased. It goes out, it comes back, the car is cleaned and washed, and then put back into service for a rental. There is a grit separator, which is right under that cursor right there, which will take the flows from the interior drains. And so basically it's a captured system. So that's basically it. There's not very much to this at all. There's no additional disturbance on the site. At present, the site has a fence on 3 sides, or 2 sides, and the intent is to leave that back fence and the side fence there and not encroach. So all we're doing is repaving the front. We're converting the back from relatively impervious gravel to pavement. We're adding the water quality treatment, water quality storage, some new catch basins, and we're hooking up the roof leaders. And that's basically it.
This is
Commissioner Bassman. Go ahead, Gokowski.
Commissioner Gokowski, Mr. Garcia. So I happen to know the history of this building. This was a used car operation for many years, probably going back to the early 70s. And I just want to make sure that you're stating that the car rental agency is going to be storing your cars on the lot. What car agency is it?
It's Enterprise Rental, if I'm not mistaken.
Pardon me?
Enterprise Rental.
Oh, so they're already established in Branford. They're moving to this location?
I think the owner is on. He can answer that question. I don't know if they're moving or this is an additional location.
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. I just want to quickly identify that Commissioner Myasin joined the meeting at 8:28. Chairman, would you like to seat her, given that there's...
Yes, there's plenty of room to seat Commissioner Meinson.
And then I also want to point out that a hand is raised, I think, to address the question that was just raised.
Good evening. Yeah, John Petrie with Enterprise Rent-A-Car, Property and Facilities Manager. This will be a relocation of our existing facility in Branford to Lisa Lane.
Okay.
This is Commissioner.
Go ahead,
Commissioner
Commissioner
Begemon, just a question. Washing the cars was mentioned on this site or a separate site?
No, they go washed inside. The water gets trapped in this grit separator. The treated water discharges into the sanitary sewer. So the grit and all the garbage and the oils and everything get trapped in this, what they call a grit separator, an oil water separator. It removes the oil, it removes the grit, it removes the pollutants, and then they're pumped periodically. So there's nothing but clean water gets into the sewer. But there's
Jamie Frederick,
I'm sorry.
Wetland Agent. I think one point of clarification is I believe the cars are going to be washed inside with floor drains.
Correct.
The water
That's correct.
washing the cars will be collected into the system. Nothing will be washed in the parking lot areas and have surface flow runoff to the wetland.
That's correct.
Commissioner Gokowski, they're using the existing service garage. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so it's a very small area. I mean, they used to do probably repair 2 or 3 cars at a time in there. It's not a very big building. I personally speaking, I think it's an ideal location for a car rental agency.
Jamie, this is
Commissioner Basserman. Is there some reason why the 2004 Stormwater Quality Manual was used instead of the most recent?
Yeah, because we just got that about 2 weeks ago, and this was submitted a while ago.
Jamie Frederick is the Wetland Agent.
Look, there's not much change.
Yeah, Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. If you look at the totals that I summarized in the staff report, if that's what you're seeing, that I don't know, and perhaps that project engineer can speak to this, but it seems plausible to me that if the calculations had been based off of the revised 1.3, that it would still capture, the amount of water that the commission would be looking to see.
That is correct.
Captured.
Yeah, I guess my only concern is to the extent that we have a revised stormwater quality management manual, it would seem to me just like we try to have everybody capture, the first inch on site now, maybe that everybody ought to be using 2023, not 2004, which is 20
we
years
did capture the water quality volume is the first 1 inch, and that's 90% of your storms, and that is captured. The way the overflows are set is that it allows the passage of the 2, 10, 25, and 100-year events. It meters it out to pre-development flows, actually less than pre-development flows by about 50%. and then it captures the first 1 inch and retains that in the bottom of the system to allow infiltration. That's exactly how this works.
This is Commissioner Bassman. Jamie, when we go to revise our regulations, can we readdress the use of the most recent stormwater management guide in the context of those regulations?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, that's the entire reason why the commission is looking to revise the regulations. I would just, so I did notice that it was the 2004 stormwater quality manual that was used. I didn't raise the question or direct them to use specifically the 2023 based on the review of the numbers that they provided, the fact that they did use the NOAA Atlas 2014 data that the commission does require, and the fact that it's redevelopment, and that again the numbers provided
understand,
and the way the regs are currently written, I didn't feel that it was necessary to push on that point.
Yeah, that's so we need to address this when we revise the regulations. I guess not now.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent and staff can, in the interim, because the language is kind of nebulous, if you will, make a practice of asking that question so that it's at least on the record of the proceeding.
Right. Okay.
And this is Commissioner Begman, isn't it? If something was before us before a certain date, I don't remember what that date was. If it was already before us.
So Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, so the 2023 Stormwater Quality Manual is a guidance document, and in the adoption of that manual, they provide kind of timeframes and deadlines for compliance, if you will. And so I think we're in the window where essentially if a project has not substantially been designed, that prior to the adoption of that that revised guidance material, that they should use that revised guidance material. If they have started, then it's kind of grandfathered.
Yeah.
And I think it's a little bit open-ended in the sense that it is a guidance document, and the fact that the commission has not revised the regs to state the 1.3 inch where it currently specifically has the regulation for the calculation that was used by this applicant in the regulations.
And this is Commissioner Begman, another question. It has to do with the percentage of impervious surface on a site. That's 60%. And this is a redevelopment site. So because it's a redevelopment site, it can be more than 60% because it looks like it's going to be more than 60% site of the total site is impervious.
So that falls under the jurisdiction of planning and zoning. And then so where redevelopment becomes relative to the inland wetland regulations is in regard, so for redevelopment, the commission can grant more breaks in the stormwater retention requirements, acknowledging the fact that it's harder potentially to retain the full stormwater quality volume on a already heavily developed site. So if you want, I can pull up that regulation so you can see that language. I do see that there is a hand raised, I believe, from a representative of the applicant.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Goklowski. From what I understand with this application, it was a change of use of the building, not a redevelopment of the building. Is that correct, Jamie?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. We can get into, splitting hairs into the definition of redevelopment. I mean, it is a repurpose of the site. It is a developed site, and they're proposing to modify the development of the site. So let me see.
I mean, the only thing they're modifying, they're changing the use from a used car dealership to basically a rental car location where it's going to be predominantly office space. That's what, to park the cars, get the cars out, and that's what they do down on West Main Street. They come in and they go out. I mean,
And if I might offer one thing, I know what you're saying, Mr. Chairman, but when you take a look at the pre and post development flows, Right now, the site is totally uncontrolled. And we've gone from no on-site treatment and no on-site retention. We've actually reduced the 2-year, which is the most common rain event, by over 50%. We reduced the 10, 25, and 100-year events by about 35% from pre-development to post-development. So we've actually made the site, 40% better.
This Commissioner Bassman, no, I understand, and things are moving clearly in the right direction. I have no issue with that.
Yeah, and that's why I think the town engineer signed off on it.
Yeah, and my comment is, for consistency's sake, we can't do it yet because the regulations don't incorporate it the way that it needs to. So we'll take a powder until such time as the regulations change. And I commend you for taking the action that you are in retaining the stormwater.
No, and we do that on every site. We retain at least the first 1 inch, but you are 100% correct. We are now using, going forward, as of about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, the new regulations on all our applications.
Thank you. I see a hand raised, but I don't want to cut short any commissioner comment question at this point. Do we have additional questions for Mr. Garcia?
This is Commissioner
Right.
Begeman. Just for the rear, the flow of the water for the rear parking lot is,
Yes.
I mean, I see some pipes there proposed, something or other. So
there's a catch basin proposed. It's proposed to pick up the catch. We're putting in new drainage. The roof leaders, and there's a catch basin, the rear parking area, drain into a catch basin. The catch basin goes into the stormwater detention system, and then it's metered out to the east into a level spreader into the wetland, or into the drain. It's actually a drainage ditch, but it is a wetland.
Jamie Frederick in the wetland agent. So I am noticing that the plan submitted revised May 23rd has spot elevations that help show how that drainage will be conveyed. And it looks like those spot elevations may have been turned off on the latest plan that was submitted.
Oh, okay.
So 1 minute, let me screen share, because I think this might pertain to the question that Commissioner Begeman was raising.
Yeah, the 612 didn't have the spot. I don't know why, but the 612 rendition didn't have the spots turned back on. But yes, the idea is for all the new pavement to drain into that catch basin. CB3, just above where the cursor is. That's correct.
So the top of frame for the catch basin is 39.5 feet. And you can kind of circle around it and see that the exterior portions of the proposed parking area are higher than 30. Maybe not over here.
Not
But this one's going to this catch basin, which is.
Oh, I see. He left the top frame of that one off too. Okay.
Oh wait, no, it's here.
Fix that. It's existing 3894. It's right there.
Yeah, because so yeah, this area pitches to this catch basin.
Correct.
And this area pitches to this catch
Correct.
basin.
And then the upper area pitches to the other basin.
Right.
And this Commissioner Bassman, where does it drain to? Is it only one that drains to the wetland, or is everything
There's only
drained?
one outlet. There's only one outlet.
So
only one outlet.
The current condition is just 2 catch basins which discharge directly to the wetland, and the proposed condition is to abandon those pipes, leave them in place, and have the system overflow discharge in one location to the wetland.
Do we know what the velocity of that discharge is, Jamie?
I would defer.
I'll be honest with you. It's probably on the order of one CFS or 2 CFS. I'd have to go back and read the discharge but it's not discharging at any great velocity. These don't come out of here at rapid speed.
Those calculations are somewhere in the material?
Yes, there's a complete set of drainage calculations that was reviewed by the town engineer. He had a couple of comments. We made them and sent them back. So there is a complete stormwater report on the file.
This is Commissioner Bassman. Jamie, have you been able to go through that report and are satisfied with the calculations?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. I have reviewed it and am satisfied to my extent of review. And then the town engineer has also reviewed it, who has much more experience and expertise in reviewing those types of documents.
And this is Commissioner Begman. So for the outfall, Jamie, for the outfall, whatever comes out of the level spreader before it goes into the wetlands, what is placed on the earth there where that water comes out? Is there riprap? Is there?
Riprap.
I don't.
There's a detail on this third sheet.
Okay, because I don't.
Of
Okay.
the set.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
8-inch depth minimum riprap over 1 layer filter fabric, 4 feet out and 4 feet wide at the further end of the outlet.
Commissioner Ormrod, is there any proposed vegetation removal along that eastern boundary where the silt fence, level spreader, outlet protection are being installed?
No. No, there's a fence along the south and west side, and then the east side, it just slopes off into the there's some pieces of fence, but there's no intention to clear that slope at all.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. I didn't specifically inspect the location where the outlet would be. There might be some minor vegetation that would have to be removed, but nothing significant.
The significant trees are shown on the drawing.
Right.
Nothing in that area. I think we located every tree over 4 inches, 6 inches.
Any other questions from the commission? I see we have a hand raised from Mr. Demore.
Yes, good evening. I'm Ted Demore, 94 Ayers Point Road, Old Saybrook. I'm the architect for the project. There was a question about the zoning and the lot coverage. The lot coverage allowed is 60%, and we are at 59%. We're not seeking any variances.
You squeaked by there, Mr. Begman. Great.
It was planned.
Yeah.
Really? Thank you. Jimmy, you want to post the staff report?
Oops. So Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, we already kind of went over the stormwater area or notes. We went over the kind of the fact there's a silt fence proposed along the limits of disturbance. They do have an anti-tracking pad detail, and a construction sequence has been provided along with the notes regarding erosion control inspections and maintenance on sheet 2. Landscaping, a landscape plan was received yesterday. Many of the plants that are proposed are native. And to the comment made earlier, there shouldn't really be much impact to any vegetation beyond there's an existing fence line pretty much either where the silt fence is proposed or beyond where the silt fence is proposed. So and the only area where I think there might be a little bit of impact is in the installation of the outlet. I can pull up that landscape plan if the commission wants to see it. It's primarily to address the zoning requirements. Notes regarding town engineer has provided comments and the project will require planning and zoning approval. Conditions for consideration include initial erosion control inspection, planting inspection, and final inspection. Everything should be marked out in the field by a surveyor, and final certification upon completion of project for grading and stormwater compliance and site plan revisions to address the location of oil water separator as may be required by other departments / agencies can be reviewed by the duly authorized agent. I added that based on one of the town engineer's comments because it sounds like he would like to have it potentially relocated. That type of activity really shouldn't have any impact on the wetlands, so I didn't think it needed to come back to the commission. If the commission thought it was important that those spot elevations be copied over to the latest plan, that could be a requirement. And one thing that I realized I omitted from putting in here is I would suggest the commission also require paper copies of the materials submitted electronically on June 12th. Let me just make sure that date's correct. Yes, June 12th, be submitted for the file prior to start of site activity.
Be more than happy to.
Jamie, this is Commissioner Bassman, can you post under the possible conditions for consideration? Scroll up. Now, the licensed surveyor on item 2.
Mm-hmm.
Does all of the areas in terms of the erosion control, stormwater, and all of that, are you reviewing that? I'm not seeing an item, and I'm not seeing an item 2 where the inland wetland agent. Oh, wait a minute. It must be submitted prior to the issuance. Okay. All right.
Oh yeah, that's relative to the comment on the oil water separator. So where 2 kind of ties into inland wetland agent inspections is under the erosion control inspection, where I kind of put the call out for location shall be marked in the field by the surveyor prior to installation. So I'm usually predominantly looking at limits of disturbance / limits of clearing when I go out to the site. And you know, the condition of everything else being marked out is in the interest of making sure that what was approved gets implemented and that there's no problems along the project or at the end of the project. And then that final certification being submitted is to document that they have gone through that process.
Completed it. Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else outstanding from the commission on 240403? Are we ready for a motion?
This is Commissioner Begman. I'll make a motion unless someone else is ready. Okay, so I make a motion that we approve Inland Wetlands 240403 for Lisa Lane site improvements due to a change in use. That we add 2 conditions to the possible conditions for consideration in the staff report that is revised 6/13/24. That we add number 4, that paper copies from the material submitted on 6/12/24 be submitted to the office, and number 5, that a new site plan that has the site elevations on it be submitted, and with the standard conditions and the general provisions of all permits.
Sounds like a complete motion. Does somebody want to second that?
Commissioner Goklowski, I second that motion.
Does anybody have a friendly amendment to that motion? All right, we'll take a vote. Commissioner Goklowski.
Commissioner Goklowski, aye.
Commissioner Begeman.
Commissioner Begman, aye.
Commissioner Meinson.
Commissioner Meinson, aye.
Commissioner Begeman.
Commissioner Begman already said aye, but I'll say aye again.
Yeah. See, I don't see everybody on the participant. Commissioner Armstrong.
Commissioner Ormrod, aye.
Commissioner Papatonis.
Commissioner Papatonis, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye. All right. I think we're good to go here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, inland wetland 240501, 1201 West Main Street. The construction of a proposed 1,850 square foot drive-through oil change facility, including parking and storm drainage system. And let's see, we have the applicant here. Jamie, anything to update on this one before we turn it over to the applicant?
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. This application was for receipt at the last meeting, so this is the first meeting where the commission is going to have receive our presentation. I have provided some initial comments to the applicant, and we're still looking to get some comments from the town engineer. I have not had a chance to draft a staff report for this application at this time. However, certainly, the general content that I would expect to see in an application has been submitted, so I think it makes sense to move forward with presentation.
Okay. The floor is yours. Is it Mr. Hool?
Yes, very good. Thank you very much. So yes, my name is Tim Hool. I am a civil engineer, the engineer of record for this project from BL Companies. We are also the architect of record for this project. I am here to represent our client and the applicant, Faulkner Island Development. They are looking to develop 1201 West Main Street. So if it's okay, I will share screens now so we can kind of walk through the project a little bit. All right. Can you all see my screen now?
Yes.
Can do. Yep.
Very good. Thank you. So I guess I'll start with just Google Maps very quickly just to get frame of reference. The site 1201, this is a little bit of an older aerial. I think it's a year and a half, 2 years old, but for reference, 1201 is where the red pin is here. It's right at the corner of Main Street and West Main, or Route 1 and 146. As you can see in this aerial, the abutting development of the Aldi's and Chase Bank wasn't completed at the time this aerial was taken. This property is directly adjacent to it, to the northeast. So I'll move forward quickly to the survey. So all of our plans now, frame of reference, the West Main Street and Main Street are on the bottom of the plan sheet. So north is kind of pointing towards the bottom left-hand corner of the sheet. The site's pretty small, just under half acre. We're plus or minus 0.46 acres. It does have frontage on both streets right at the intersection. There is an informal driveway to both streets. They both have active curb cuts. However, they're not really used a lot. They're old driveways. All the utilities are readily available actually in the grass shoulder of the public right-of-way, which is a nice layout here. The site itself extends, I'll say, plan north, which is actually south in this case, from the street. A total property depth of about 200 feet, a width of a little over 100. The vast majority of the site is wooded. There's varying degrees of wood, scrub brush, and there are sections that are overgrown with some invasives and vines and things of that nature. But as a whole, it's 90+% vegetated with the woodland areas. So moving forward, we are proposing a new development. I guess actually I should take a step back quickly. The reason we are here as for wetlands, there are no wetland resource areas that were located on site. However, BL Companies actually was the engineer of record for the Aldi's and Chase Bank directly next door. With that project, we did encounter a wetland resource area. It's not really shown great in the aerial here, but it's located just to the back of the Chase Bank area. It falls off site from this new development. However, from the record information we have and the records that I'm sure are still on file with the town from the Aldi's and Chase development, we know that wetland is there. We know we fall within the upland review area. So that's the main reason why we are here.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. I'm sorry, I'm gonna just quickly steal the show. I do have an aerial image that shows the approximate location of the offsite wetland in recent aerial imagery, so I think that might be helpful to share at this time. It's showing the wetland before the approved wetland impact occurred, so obviously the wetland's not this full extent anymore. It approximately is cut off where the road is. But this, where the blue arrow is the subject site, and this is the location of the offsite wetland that is within 100 feet of some of the proposed activity. And sorry, but I just thought I'd share that real quick.
Yes, thank you, Jamie.
Floor is yours again.
Thank you. That's very helpful. I guess continuing on that, some of the information that we had from the previous project, the wetland in this area was primarily man-made. This whole area, as some of you may know, was heavily modified through rock removal. I don't want to say mining operations, but gravel harvesting, things of that nature. And the consensus of the wetland scientists back in the 2019, 2020 timeframe when this process started for the Aldi's and Chase Bank was that the wetland was really a result of the man-made impacts from those historical operations. It doesn't have a high value, but certainly it's there. It exists. It was a regulated area, and a permit was obtained for the Aldi's and Chase. So we're here to follow the same path and appear before you all for work within the upland review area for this development. So I think with that, I will quickly screen share again and jump to the proposed plan now. As was mentioned in the notice, the proposed project is a drive-through oil change facility. It's approximately 1,700 square feet. This is a quick summary on this use. It's fairly new to the Connecticut market. Essentially, the chief competitors of this style facility you would think of as like a Midas or a Jiffy Lube. However, the big differentiation here is that visitors, when they come in, they stay in their car the whole time. So they drive in the driveway. In this case, they circle around the back of the site and drive up to one of the overhead bays. They pull right into the building. The tech who's working on the vehicle, they're doing all the work while the visitor, the customer, they stay in their car in the building. It really is meant to be a high turnover style facility. There really isn't much need for parking. It's a very low impact in terms of traffic and circulation, parking, as I mentioned. They're trying to maximize efficiency here. There are a few of these starting to pop up in Connecticut, but it's still pretty new concept. As a whole, we have the building kind of located in the center, driveway coming off of the Route 146 side. The intention there, as you can see, we have a match line on all these plans. So the main site is kind of located on the left. The driveway connection out to the street is located here on the right half. The intention here is, we wanted to get away from the intersection as far as we could. So we have full access in and a right out only. It's too close to the intersection to safely get a left out. So customers, they'll drive in the driveway, they'll come up to the back of the site, as I mentioned, they'll make a U-turn, enter into one of the 3 repair bays, have their vehicle serviced while they are there. Upon completion, they'll drive out of the building themselves and exit the site. There's no need for visitors to park in any of the parking stalls. However, we do have 10 included. The average day is expected to have 3 employees working at any one time. There's the 3 repair bays, and inside the building, there's a small office and a restroom, really for the staff there. Pretty minimal staffed, minimal need for parking. Excuse me. Other site amenities include, we do have some sidewalks around so that there's access from the parking into the building and into both the office, and then there's an egress door on this side and also an egress door on the front right corner. There's interior storage of new and waste oil. They have spill containment within the building included. And the trash collection, the refuse area is located in the back, primarily to kind of screen away from the street, so it's out of line of sight. And also, it's an area that isn't really going to be impacted too much during routine operations. The one item I would like to point out, we do have the estimated upland review area or regulated area here. It's this line I just highlighted in yellow. We did take that from the historical plans that we had from the Aldi's and Chase development, so it's pretty close to what was approved previously. As you can see, the regulated area really clips the back approximately quarter to third of the site. The building is outside of that area. So, the principal use with the oil change area is outside of that. The building itself, the development as a whole does comply with all of the zoning requirements. We exceed all of the setbacks, except for the side building setback we're right on. We are really penned in widthwise here, so we had to be pretty much right on the side setback on this side to get the circulation to work on the plan left side. Parking, we exceed all the requirements there as well. Impervious coverage, we are just under the required, the maximum required, which is 60% here. We're at 59%. Lot coverage, 25% max for building. We're at 9%, so plenty of room there. Building height, 40 max. We're at approximately 29 feet, so still well in compliance there. Overall for parking.
This is Commissioner Basserman. How do you deal with stormwater?
Yes. Would you like me to jump to that now, or
please? That
was one of the next points. Okay, sure. So stormwater, I will jump to our stormwater plan here. So this is a combined grading and drainage plan. So I'll quickly step through grading first to lead into stormwater. As a whole, the existing area, this existing portion of the site is higher in elevation. We're going to be a net cut in order to have safe driveway slopes up into the site. We do have retaining walls along the edge of the site, kind of up in this area on the left side, and then there is a retaining wall on the right-hand side as well. This left-hand retaining wall, the site will be lower in elevation than the surrounding grade, so it's an exposed face looking into the site. The right-hand side, the exposed face is plan right. The building pad area is higher in elevation than the Aldi's and Chase Bank site. In the back of the site, we do have a natural graded 3-to-1 slope. The off-site area to the rear is higher in elevation than our site. So we're a net cut. We are down gradient of the wetland resource area. From a stormwater perspective, what this all means is the site is pretty well self-contained. Everything, essentially from the property lines in, it all drains inward. There is a small drainage area off-site to the plan left that will sheet flow into the site, but it's really small. You can kind of see the edge of the change right in this area. So the site more or less functions as its own drainage area. We have stormwater collection through a series of catch basins. I will highlight those in red here. There's one out in the front parking area, one on the top portion of the driveway. There is one out in the driveway close to the street line. And then in the back, we have a trench drain just prior to entering the building. All three of these catch basins are deep sump hooded catch basins. They are piped to into underground. The three catch basins specifically are two of the three. I'm sorry. These two in the site proper are piped into an underground stormwater detention system, treatment in an isolator row. So effectively, we're getting the settlement and treatment there before water will leach out into the remainder of the underground retention system. The catch basin out in the street is a direct discharge to the street drainage system into the DOT system. That is a deep sump hooded catch basin as well, but it is it's actually a hydrodynamic separator as well to get the TSS treatment that's required. The trench drain is connected from the drain into a clean out at the end, and then flows into a similar subsurface retention system with an isolator row for treatment in the beginning portion, and then the two remaining rows are the retention volume area. Both of these systems are sized to assume zero infiltration at this point. We do have, as you may see, some test pit location from the historical explorations that were done on site. We kind of have mixed bag of information throughout, and it's our expectation to do pre-construction test pits here and infiltration testing to see if we can achieve any infiltration. However, for a more conservative design, we assumed no infiltration. Stormwater will be retained in both of these systems through outlet control structures. I'll highlight those in orange. They are the manhole that's immediately downstream of both of these systems. The intention there is to, through a series of weirs and orifices in that structure, to hold back as much water as we can to slowly meter out the flow so that we balance the pre-development and post-development discharge rates, which we did get a net reduction through all design storms through this method. Outflow from those outlet control structures flows plan left and then down towards the street for eventual discharge out into the DOT system and the catch basin that's in the green space along the frontage here, plan right. And I guess
I guess regarding the infiltration, what happens in an overflow condition?
Yes, so in large storm events, both of these structures, especially if they exceed a 100-year storm, both of these structures have overflow weirs built into them. So it's essentially got a wall inside the structure that it doesn't go all the way up to the rim elevation. In really large storm events, water will back up into the stormwater chambers, and then as it exceeds that overflow weir height, it'll flow out and flow out through the storm, piping it out into the DOT system.
This is
And
Commissioner.
roof drains on the building go where?
Roof drains, they're along the back side of the building here. They're piped around and come into the front underground system for storage and slowly being released out to the DOT system. Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, Commissioner Begeman, you had a question? Yeah.
Yeah, so you have a place right now that has trees and things growing on it, which suggests that there's some water that's retained in the soil. Then you put pavement on something and you put these catch basins, then that's not what they're called, that don't infiltrate, and you reduce the runoff somehow. I don't understand how that makes sense.
Yes, so we're reducing the runoff, the peak flow rate of runoff,
Yeah.
volume in this circumstance, assuming no infiltration, the volume of runoff will increase. There's no way around that, but the regulations indicate that we need to balance the peak discharge rates, not necessarily the volumes.
Got it.
Like I mentioned before, though, we do intend to do test pits prior to construction. If we can infiltrate, we would strongly prefer to. It's the environmentally sensitive thing to do. It also does have a financial impact as well. If we can get infiltration here, there's a chance these underground systems can be reduced in size. So it has a win-win for both the town's perspective on putting more water back into the ground and increasing that recharge volume. There's also a benefit to the client. So they really would benefit. It's something that both parties would really would like to see if possible.
This is Commissioner Begeman again. So Jamie, then I have a question, or Chairman Basserman. So if somebody's suggesting a plan, but they also say that if we can do X, which is better, we will, but it's not part of the plan, and we approve this plan, it doesn't. Can either of you speak to that? It's kind of, I don't know if I've seen this yet.
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. So, I mean, the commission has requested that test pits be done during the review process to help demonstrate likely infiltration success. And then I guess another follow-up question I have relative to this conversation is the water quality volume being retained on site if no infiltration is being assumed?
Sure. So I guess to answer the first question, it seems to be a community by community thing. I've worked in a number of communities that they're comfortable with infiltration testing happening prior to construction and being essentially something that's reviewed prior to the issuance of a zoning permit. But again, that's a community specific thing. Some are okay with that, some aren't. Sometimes it does result in a modification of a permit. Sometimes it doesn't. It really is a community specific thing and what is comfortable with being an administrative approval versus coming back to a commission. As far as the water quality volume, we are, with no infiltration being assumed, we aren't recharging the water quality volume, but we are verifying that we can treat the water quality storm at a minimum. With no infiltration being assumed, there's not much opportunity to infiltrate that, but we do size these isolator rows such that they do meet the required water quality volume. It's the 1.3 inch storm now with the new regulations. So those are sized to handle that design storm.
Commissioner Goklowski, Mr. Hooley, I understand you stated that customers are not going to be leaving their vehicles. That's correct?
Correct.
So they're going to be driving in. Are they going to be driving on overhead lifts, or is the mechanics going to be working in a pit?
There will be no overhead lifts. There will be a small pits under each repair bay.
Okay, and what is the depth of those pits?
I believe they're about 5 to 6 feet in depth.
Okay, and how are you gonna? What would happen if those pits filled up with water?
There's no drains built into those. However, there's because of the oil nature, it's something that would have to be cleaned up and managed through a proper spill containment or spill cleanup company. It's one of those situations we don't necessarily want a drain down in there because of the high likelihood of hydrocarbons going in there.
And the oil that they're extracting from the cars, where is that oil getting drained into?
They have inside the building, there are storage tanks inside for the waste oil. And as that's accumulated, it will be routinely pumped out and hauled off site.
So you don't anticipate any water going into those pit areas at all?
No.
Okay. Do you happen to know the original use of that particular parcel of land? My recollection says that there was a residential home on that property at one time.
Yes, I believe that is correct.
Okay. So the zoning has been changed to commercial to, I mean, it's not our purview, but
Yes. So the zone here now is local business.
Okay.
And the motor vehicle, the drive-through service doesn't quite fit within the motor vehicle service definition and zoning. That's the closest use, and it's allowed via special exemption here.
all right, thank you.
And this is Commissioner Bassman, I may have missed it, but why is there no infiltration anticipated on this site?
Some of the test pit results we got from the historical explorations between this site and the Aldi's and Chase next door show that there's clays mixed throughout. And it really was very sporadic with one test pit. Like there's a couple up here that had zero infiltration. They're, less than 50 feet apart. And the next one next to it could have acceptable infiltration of 2 to 3 inches per hour. So it's really sporadic and really warrants testing in the exact location that the systems are proposed.
Jamie Frederick, Inland Wetland Agent, if it comes up through staff review and or if the commission determines now, or if the town engineer suggests that test pits be conducted, does the commission have any issue with that work commencing during the review process if they're able to get that scheduled?
This is Commissioner Bassman, I think it would be preferred.
Yeah, and the commission has requested it before, so I don't think it would be out of line.
Yeah. I mean, the idea that we have an opportunity to get a better sense of the site in terms of being able to, retain appropriate stormwater and get some idea on what the ground is clearly something I think within the purview of our review. And I'd hate to think that we go forward and then have to make amendments after the fact based on test pits that we didn't do now but did later.
Yeah, Jamie Frederick.
Is the site curbed, by the way?
Can you say that again?
Is the site curbed?
Yes.
Around the exterior?
We have a full 6-inch curb all the way around the project. Yes.
Okay. Jamie, you had a comment?
Jamie Frederick, Inland Wetland Agent. I just wanted to mention that the regulations do require that the first inch be treated through retention or demonstrate why it's not prudent or feasible to do so. So I think the test pits are important to that regulation.
Okay, understood. So I think just quickly in closing, I would just like to summarize by saying, we do have a comprehensive stormwater system. I do hear the comments on test pits. I will certainly bring that back up with our project team. As a whole, we feel pretty comfortable in the minimal impacts that this will have on the wetland resource area offsite. We are down gradient by quite a bit, actually. There's very, very little likelihood any impact from the proposed development will work its way back towards the wetland area. And even the work that we're doing within the regulated area, it's relatively minor in nature with grading and parking installation. As a whole, we feel this is a valuable development addition to the town, and I'd be glad to hear any comments that you have, and certainly we can address those in conjunction with test pits and receiving a final staff memo, as well as receiving comments from engineering we'd like to address those all in one pass and then come back before you for our next opportunity to have hopefully a more well-rounded, buttoned-up plan with all the comments addressed.
Jamie,
In the wetland agent, I do have one more comment, kind of just overall. So I do agree the site does appear to be graded so that drainage and whatnot would go away from that wetland that the subject proposal is within 100 feet of. For clarification, I know that the stormwater ultimately goes into the state drainage system in the Route 1 corridor, if you will. Looking at the coastal management plan, I believe, it appears to me that that drainage would ultimately go to the Mill Creek or Watercourse 2. Do you know if that is in fact where the stormwater is conveyed to?
I will have to double check on that. I believe you are correct, but I will have to double check.
So I just wanted to put that in context for the commission. And that's it.
Commissioner Bassman, that was the issue we had with the Aldi site, Jamie?
Well, I think that's a super simplistic statement that I don't know how to address.
It's the area to the right. I think that's water.
It was part of the Aldi project. I
Right.
wouldn't say it was the issue, but it was an issue.
Right. Yeah, no, I didn't mean to emphasize the. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I think, it's important if we're somewhat not normal in terms of stormwater management treatment because of the nature of the soils in which the activity is to take place. We're going to need to be able to say that we obviated the norm because of the following reasons and conditions. And it's got to be something that then doesn't become, precedent for the next one that's looking not to infiltrate a site because it, for whatever reason. And so the evidence needs to be present and substantial as to why we don't follow the norm.
Yeah, Jamie Frederick in the wetland agent. There has been public interest in the past when water being conveyed to Mill Creek is part of an application. And that's because it is a very flashy water course. So I think consideration of making sure that, whatever on-site management can be provided, particularly in regards to retention, is important.
Is Commissioner Basserman, is this something that would be available, at least a plan for what's to happen next at our next meeting on the 27th of June?
I think we can, by then we can have a plan of where we would like to perform test pits, and ideally we'll have a schedule of when those can happen. I don't know. It depends on scheduling with getting a contractor to the site. We may or may not have preliminary results by then, but at a minimum, we should have more information on where those test pits we would like to happen by the 27th.
Great. Anything else from the commission?
I assume this Commissioner Begemon. So next meeting we'll also talk about the planting plan.
I could actually bring that up now if you would like. We do have a full landscape plan here. Essentially, we took largely zoning based approach. However, I guess the big driver here, we have a couple of street trees to meet the regulations and one shade tree kind of for the parking area, some more ornamental perennials and small shrubs around the building. The big note here is we do have a pretty extensive perimeter landscape screening all the way around the project perimeter. It all falls within the site, but it does stay height to the limit of disturbance. It's primarily a mix of American holly and western red cedar to provide visual barrier to the other sites, but they're both species that do have value to to wildlife. So those are the species that kind of ring the site around the outside.
Thank you.
How long does the oil change take?
They're pretty quick. Usually they're in and out in under 20 minutes. Sometimes it's even faster. At that point, it depends on the size of the vehicle. If they're changing, doing an oil change on a pickup, it might take closer to the 20 minutes. If they're changing it on a like a Toyota Prius or some small car, it could be 10, 15 minutes.
Thank you. See you on the 27th.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. Yeah, so I think tentatively continuing it to the 27th, and then staff will work with the applicant to see if they're ready. And if not, I believe we have time to continue it to the first meeting in July.
Great. Thank you much.
Very good. Thank you very much. I appreciate all of your feedback and time.
Got it. All right, number 5, enforcement again. We have a notice of violation on 142 Chestnut Street, the removal of vegetation and earthwork without a permit to conduct regulated activities. And I know that this has been back and forth in terms of information requested and information received. Where are we at currently, Jamie, on this?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. So a report has been received that kind of addresses some restoration type measures. It identifies wetland limits on property, and provides some recommendations for consideration. So I think it would make sense. We've got the soil scientist present for him to kind of walk through that report, and then maybe I'll reserve my recommendations and thoughts until after the commission has reviewed that report and asked questions, unless anyone wants something different.
This is Commissioner Begeman. Can I just make sure that the new road that was constructed get mentioned in as you go through the report? If I was reading the right report, it says that there was a new road, or I was reading an old report. Anyhow, Matt can talk to it about it.
I'd love to. I presume everyone's really tired and they want to go home soon. The road, I'll talk about it, but I probably overstated it as a road, and Jamie we could talk about it after. But so this started, as everyone knows, as sort of a fact-finding thing. We went into the site to see what may have happened there, and I didn't have this in my letter, but we've gone back and forth on this, and she wanted me to discuss it, and it makes sense. But I do believe it was probably dredge materials or some material that was brought in. My reason for saying that, again, is because we went back and looked at a bunch of old aerial photographs, and every aerial photograph we looked at showed cars parked in this area. And for soils to be that glade, which indicates basically they're underwater for permanently underwater, you wouldn't be able to drive anything in there. So it makes sense to me that there was some fill brought in at some point, and then some more stable fill put on top, and cars were parked there. But every aerial I've looked at, as far back as I can go, shows the salvage yard there, or the auto, whatever it was, and generally in the areas that are open and gravel now, there may have been some expansion, but most of that area was covered with cars. So basically what I did is I went out and I flagged wetlands on the site wherever they were proximate to anywhere that was disturbed, or basically this is something that Jamie and I discussed. We could sort of get a handle on what was done there and where the activities are in relation to the wetlands. And so I GPS the wetland flags with a Trimble GPS unit. It has sub-meter accuracy, so it's pretty accurate, and that's reflected on a GIS map that I've submitted as part of my plan. I don't know if you want to pull that up, Jamie. And then the other thing I've done is I've sort of identified two areas here, an area 1, which is the left-hand side, and then more recently in area 2 to the right, which is the Quonset hut area. That was at Jamie's request. My initial letter didn't address this area. I had flagged the wetlands, but I didn't address restoration. This area 2, there was probably some clearing. Well, it appears that there was clearing work done beyond what may have been originally cleared there. So basically what I've done in this plan here is what we're looking at doing is so the current conditions now, as far as are the wetlands being impacted, what are the impacts on the site now? In the larger area 1 on the left, and Jamie was out recently with us, and I think we walked and I showed you the specific areas, Jamie, where there is some runoff. So there's very little erosion from that area 1 now into the water course or the swale that extends to the south. There's one notable area towards the very southern end where there is a plume of sediment that has eroded into that wetland swale. But for the most part, it does.
Matt, this is Commissioner Betham. Can you highlight that at all with your cursor as you run around?
If you're looking at that swale, if you're looking at the swale to the south, it would be the red X that's all the way down and to the left.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, that one right there is where most of it's going in right now.
Got it. Okay.
So the strategy here for area 1 would be to basically utilize that existing wetland swale that extends to the south. And as we had discussed previously, one of the things that threw me off when we looked at the old aerials of the site is that swale was never visible on those aerials. What I was told, and I don't have any proof of this, but it would certainly make sense, is that there were metal plates over that swale so that they could park on them. That makes sense to me because the swale doesn't look like it was recently formed. It looks like it's been there for a while, but it's clearly not visible on any old aerials. So my thought process here is to essentially use that swale as a water quality treatment feature for water that drains to the watercourse that's at the very northern end, which would be the area that I would deem would be the area we'd want to protect from a resource standpoint. Yep. It's the most intact. It's along the wood line. Mm-hmm. So the thought process here is that you gravel that entire area 1, and then you put a berm around the swale so that water's just not draining off wherever it wants to go, and that you basically make breaks in that berm, and then you put leak offs, which would be stone, larger stone that would basically capture the runoff from the surrounding gravel area, and it would flow into those leak offs and then just basically bleed into the swale itself. I did ask Criscolo to provide a detail. He did provide me. We went back and forth yesterday, I believe, and I do have a final detail for that. I didn't submit it yet, but I do have a detail that the contractor could follow. It's fairly straightforward. There's not a ton of water that's draining into that area now. As I said, based on the fact that there's only one area where there's active erosion into the swale, I think that if you created, you might only need 4 leak offs total on this whole feature. But it's just a way to control the runoff to a designated area so that it drains into that swale in a controlled way, and then it's not continuing to erode into the swale. The swale itself, from a water quality standpoint, is exceptionally configured to provide water quality treatment. It's a very low gradient and it's dense emergent vegetation. So it has the characteristics of what you would want. If you designed a water quality swale to treat the water, that's what you would want. I would anticipate that the water that's entering the swale from the surrounding gravel area would be clean. The only pollutant that's really going into it now is the soil itself, the eroded soil material. So once you eliminate that, I would anticipate the water that goes into it just to be clean water. And then the berm that's surrounding the swale would be elevated and landscaped. That's more than anything for not just aesthetics, but it really provides a physical barrier so that there's no future encroachments into those areas. The berm that I'm showing along the watercourse feature all the way to the north would be a solid berm with no leak offs. So that would not convey water directly to that watercourse. In the upper end of that swale, the very northern end, I found almost no evidence of any erosion or water moving into the swale in that area. It was more to the south. So I don't even know that you really need leak offs in that section there. And there's also a good part of area 1, especially to the right-hand side, that drains away from that swale now. So I don't think it's very difficult from a water management standpoint if you graveled that area for it to control it, to release it in a controlled way to the swale.
Yes, Commissioner Basserman, it is in an intense storm, let's say multiple days of an intense storm, are the leak offs going to be an issue, or would you widen the leak off for a larger storm? I mean, how do you design that with intense storms in mind?
The leak offs, the stone in the leak offs would be larger stones, so that it would be configured so that the stone itself wouldn't erode. What you could have in a very intense storm is that it would fill up, and then any additional water that goes into it'll essentially be a small plunge pool. Any additional water will just go right through it into so one of the things I went back and forth with Criscolo is he wanted to stone all the way down through the swale. I said that I would prefer not to have direct impacts to the base of the swale. So what we talked about is pulling it back and then armoring the swale to the toe of the slope. So essentially the water that drains off would drain over coarse stone. What I would expect to happen, as always happens with processed stone, is that for the first few months that you're getting heavy rain in this area, you will have fines move from the processed stone into the plunge pools. It's inevitable. I see it all the time when you place new process, whether you roll it or not onto these surfaces, you will have migration of fines. It's just stone dust that will end up in the plunge pools. So I do think it will be important that after a few months that you clean all that out. Moving forward, once the fines have flushed from process, I do find it to be very stable, and then I wouldn't expect any issues with that swale. The area 2 was an area that was more recently expanded. And so there's a few things going on over here. I tried to capture it in a GIS map. Again, Jamie and I looked at this in the field, along with Jim Preddy from Criscolo and the owner. First off, the road that I had mentioned is along the very southern property boundary. I called it a road. It's not really a road. It's a stone base that was created to park a trailer on, to store a trailer. Would you agree with that, Jamie?
Yeah, and in the other call out, you call it a trailer equipment pad. You do also call it a constructed road, and I think I do recall reading that and going, but I would agree it's kind of more of a pad to park equipment. I definitely wouldn't call it a road. When Commissioner Begemon mentioned a road constructed, I was like, where is that?
Yeah, I thought about it myself too, but no, I probably called it that, and it's probably not an accurate. It's big enough to park one flat, 30-foot flatbed trailer, maybe. I think there's a photo of it in my report, actually.
Oh, yeah. Report. Possibly.
Yeah, I included a photo.
So, I mean, that was already, for the most part, constructed when the commission went out there, but it definitely was modified a little bit the last time I was out there.
Yeah.
So there was a bunch of woody debris below it that kind of got pushed up onto the side, which was one of the recommendations, was to kind of pull that material back down. And it seems like it was there may have been some additional rock placed on the lower side of where the pad is. Than what was the condition when the commission went out for their site walk. So here you can see the subject trailer being stored, the rock on the lower side, and you can kind of see the brush in the back.
From that road, it does drop into an area of bare soil. And Jamie and I looked at this together, and there's nothing that's eroding down through that area now, but it is bare soil. And I think it makes sense just to pull that windrowed brush and just place it right back over that low area there. The brush was basically pushed up along the state boundary line there. I think if you just pulled it down on the machine and just covered up the bare soil, it would provide a barrier to future access so that the road isn't extended any further. And then I also think it just provides coverage over the exposed soil surface. There's watercourses just below that. And that's where it drains off the site, basically, to the highway.
Yeah, from an immediate erosion control standpoint, there's a fallen tree or something, an uprooted tree that is providing a pretty effective barrier from runoff just freely flowing into the water course without some settling opportunity. But I certainly am concerned about long-term stability and preventing activity from encroaching closer to the wetland, I would say are my two main concerns relative to that area.
And then the other parts of area 2 that we were looking to address is similarly, it's just a sort of an earth and gravel area now that is eroding, and it's eroding in specifically one area along the soil stockpile area. That right there, that the soil stockpile area is to your left, the water course is to your right. The water is working its way down kind of alongside this silt fence, and this is the area where we were looking to install. Similarly, this stormwater structure would be sort of a larger sort of linear feature that's again larger stone that would capture the runoff from the surrounding area and basically discharge it. Right there. And what we're proposing to do there is create a buffer. So where you were looking at that photo of the stockpile, we would create a buffer to the rear of that, which would be a no build, like we would block it off and landscape it. But that area would be, the stormwater feature would be to the left of it. That just creates a barrier because there's a steep slope to the right-hand side of that drops down. So there would be a likelihood based on what's going on there now that area would become some type of storage area or something if you didn't block it off. The other thing that we discussed when we were out there is the soil stockpile area is on the wetland or stream side of this opening. The idea there is, the landowner said that they're working through the soil stockpile now, and that when it's done that they wouldn't put anything back there. So in the note there, I just say that you and I didn't provide a timeline, and possibly we would need to do that. But basically just get rid of what's there now and then if you're going to have another soil stockpile there, it would have to be on the left-hand side of that opening as opposed to the right. There's a lot of good faith stuff here, and admittedly, and so one of the other things we discussed when we were out there is, and I sort of put Friscola on the spot here, but I would strongly recommend that when this area is gravelled and when the stormwater structures are being constructed, that there is direct oversight from a PE. Jim Preddy has offered to do that from Friscola. I would not leave this to the contractor and the GIS figure to do this properly. But I do think that with oversight, I don't think this is not a complicated task. I think it's fairly straightforward, but I do think that having a PE out there while it's done to verify that that the grades are directing water to the stormwater structures and the stormwater structure are constructed properly is important.
This is Commissioner Basserman. Yeah, I none of this seems to be overly complicated, but there's a lot of moving parts.
Yes. And honestly, this is one of those things that if you get a good contractor, you probably don't need to do a thing, and they're going to do it a great job up front. And if you get a contractor, we had this discussion openly in the field. If you get a contractor who's the absolute lowest bid, who's just looking to find some work, you could have problems. But I do think with Jim Preddy out there, and again, he didn't volunteer, but he said he would be happy to do it. He has a relationship with the owner. I'm comfortable that this could be done well.
This is Commissioner Basserman. Jamie, do we need to move forward and memorialize this in a cease and correct?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. So that was one of the comments I was holding back. And I think perhaps if the commission is leaning that way, which I would suggest, is that maybe we add consideration of issuing a cease and correct order for 142 Chestnut Street to the agenda. If somebody wants to make that motion, and we can discuss that kind of in tangent with this process like we did earlier. Just because we're adding it doesn't mean you have to do it, but
I would make the motion that for 142 Chestnut Inland, notice of violation 142 Chestnut Street, that we commence with the issuance of a cease and correct order.
I just meant adding it for consideration to the agenda.
Okay. Does anybody not want to add the consideration of a cease and correct order to the agenda? I think it's added.
Okay, well, it has to be a motion.
It has to be a motion. I'll go back to where I was. I'd like to make a motion to add a cease and correct order consideration for 142 Chestnut Street.
Commissioner Papantone, second.
Any further discussion on that motion? All right, I guess we consider the motion added at this point. Now we can have that discussion.
Vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? All right.
Okay. So I think it makes sense to issue a cease and correct order for many of the same reasons that I outlined previously this evening. It's again not because the owner has not been responsive to the commission, but because, as Chairman Basserman pointed out, there's a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot to lot going on. So I think a cease and correct order helps identify what is required to resolve the violation and the time frame for doing that. So I do not have a fancy memo prepared for this property. Unfortunately, I did not have enough time. But I think that there's a lot in this report that can be used to draft the cease and correct order, and perhaps if there's anything that the commission wants more information on, that could be included. And of course, it would have the same process where if the cease and correct order is issued, it would be within the statutory time frame to have a show cause hearing, which I think it makes sense to put it at the June 27th meeting, where the owner and or any of his professionals can present to the commission why they feel that it's not appropriate to uphold the cease and correct order, or any concerns they have with the specific content of the order.
This Commissioner Bassman. The other thing is that I don't think we want to find ourselves in the same situation as we found ourselves with a item that we struggled with for over a year, and that is there are definite activities that have to be done here,
right?
Have to be corrected, and we have more enforcement power, I guess, if you will, or control, if we issue a cease and correct, as opposed to getting in an application to resolve these issues. So I think let's take the bull by the horns and move forward with the cease and correct. I guess is my part of my logic.
Yeah, Jamie Frederick and the Wetland agent. So I think at this point, this is kind of moved away from a notice violation. As you said, there's theoretically items that the commission wants to see addressed to resolve the activity that has occurred. And it's activity the commission wants to see addressed. And it sounds like the owner is, looking to help to go through the process. But it's not activity that they necessarily want to do. So a permit wouldn't necessarily be the right vector. And then kind of general guidance on the violation process is if there's activity the commission is requiring somebody to do, that is an order. So I think the order doesn't need to be a contentious process. It just outlines what is required in the time frame. It gives the owner opportunity to express concerns and have discussion with the commission, and the commission can make a decision after that show cause hearing. So I guess the first two questions would be, does the commission feel like generally the information you're looking to see to resolve the violation has been submitted, or is there additional information that you think is necessary? Do you think a formal site plan is required, or do you think what we have here is perhaps enough with a cease and correct order and timeframes and oversight from a PE potentially sufficient? I will also just quickly identify that it does look like the activity may have extended onto the neighboring property in this area here. So I would suggest that the order also speak to that and potentially require that the owner confirm where the property line is relative to there, and that additional corrective activities might be required if it does in fact extend onto another parcel.
Jamie, Commissioner Gopowski, are you saying that the activities that were being conducted at 142 Chestnut happened on the adjacent property too by the owner of 142 Chestnut?
It certainly appears that way, as it is adjacent and congruent to, and they did install erosion controls along that area. And because it's on the opposite side of the water course from any improvements on that other subject parcel. Certainly that would be
Commissioner
something that,
Basserman.
you know, if they had dispute with, they could raise.
This Commissioner Papantonis, I have a question, because I know it was a long time ago that we walked this site, but I kind of remember the owner of the property pointing out an area on an adjacent parcel and saying, I had nothing to do with that.
I think that was, so Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, on the other side of the water course in this area, there was some debris
and some dumping,
tires, pieces of fencing, I believe. And he had said he had nothing to do with that, and that's not what I'm talking about. So in this area here, there was some clearing. Well, there was some earth disturbance, and manipulation of dirt adjacent to the water course.
My red outline there, Jamie, is my GPS walking the edge of the limit of disturbance.
Would that be approximately where the straw wattle was placed?
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
Yeah, so it's certainly, and again, this is not a survey, this is approximate parcel lines. But I have seen a survey of the property, and the general shape of the property lines appears to be fairly accurate. So I think it's worth investigating. And if there has been potentially an expansion of activity into an area that's not subject to the actual parcel, I think that is something the commission might want to see remedied, especially given its proximity to the wetland /
Wetlands. Mm-hmm. Here's Commissioner Basserman. Go ahead, Commissioner Gokowski.
Thank you. Just real quick, I think if we outline what needs to be done, it will be clear to all parties concerned, the owner and the commission, what we're expecting for the property owner to do. I mean, every time we have requested something from this particular property owner, he has complied. But he also stated in one of his conversations that, what else do you want me to do? Tell me so we can just
Jamie Frederick. Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. I think that's another reason why the cease and correct order is helpful in this process. It kind of provides a clear, okay, the commission has finished the review, obviously contingent upon the show cause hearing. And this is what is expected in the time frame for it to be completed. And it gives them okay, this step is done. I just have to do these items, and then I have completed the requirements.
Is Commissioner Basserman, to that extent, do we have the information this evening such that you're able to pull together a cease and correct with the enumerated items that need to be corrected?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, I think we have information available. I think some of it will be slightly open-ended, in part, the point I just raised about whether or not the activity actually is fully within the subject parcel, but I think it can be outlined enough to provide the guidance, and it might be something that can be cleared up, at that show cause hearing and or with some supplemental information. I mean, at bare minimum, I would suggest that the proposed 20, wait, no, sorry. So yeah, the proposed 20-foot wide landscaped area with stone barriers along developed side to prevent future encroachment. So they're proposing stone barriers along the western side of this landscape area. I would suggest that those stone barriers should be extended along the shared property line, the extent of where the area of disturbance within the straw wattle is, so that there's no further activity extending onto the abutting property and within, close proximity of that watercourse feature.
This is Commissioner Basserman. Jamie, this is a process question. To the extent that we issue the cease and correct, and then we have the hearing and information becomes available at the hearing, can we amend at that point the cease and correct?
Absolutely. Yes, so Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, a cease and correct order is effective upon issuance. However, within 10 days of issuance, the commission has to have a show cause hearing to provide the recipient of the order an opportunity to show cause to the commission why the order shall either not remain in effect or that it should be modified. And the commission can either uphold the order as written, uphold the order as modified, or overturn the order, lift the order. And if the commission determines more information is needed, they could continue the show cause hearing.
Okay, thank you.
And a show cause hearing is not a public hearing. Just another point of potential clarification.
This is Commissioner Begemans. When you do a cease and correct, will the property owner understand that they're not supposed to correct it on their own, that they have to come to you? And because it just seems like we keep on having.
I can build in an inspection, like we would. Yeah, I can.
Because they may have good intention, Commissioner Begemans, they may have good intentions, like, oh, we have to fix that. Okay. They'll fix it. But in the meantime, they may do something that hurts something else. We want it to go the right way so that we can get to a
we get
resolution.
Do like a pre-construction meeting.
I think that would be helpful
with the contractor and project engineer present.
And the owner.
Commissioner Basserman, but I would say for the first time, thankful for Mr. Davison's work here, we have isolated certain areas with solutions pertinent to those areas. And they're clearly not homogeneous. They're different treatments based on the conditions that he observed in the site. And so we have something a lot more now to sink our teeth into in terms of building on that, as opposed to before where we were still collecting data. Now we have some data and some recommended ideas of how to treat that, specifically the information regarding the swale.
So I will backtrack, Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, and say I think I may have enough to start a cease and correct order, assuming that what the commission is seeing in this report appears to align with what you're expecting for a remedy. I do have some thoughts already for additional comments, and I've noted down some things from the discussion this evening. So I think, there is some history of the site to consider in what's going on, and I think that's part of why this process has kind of taken the route that it has. You know, there was a historical kind of junkyard use on the property. You know, there's been arguably some improvements to the property and some activities that are, you know, that should have potentially been or should have been reviewed by the commission prior to commencing. And you know, I think yeah.
I will say that the owner has been very easy to work with, which I hate doing violations because you're often dragging them kicking and screaming, and I really don't have no incentive to do that with property owners that have violations. I just don't have the time or energy, but he's been very easy to work with. So I think that does offer some suggestions about future success.
And I appreciate the novel kind of creative look at how do we turn the swale from something that is causing an issue into part of a solution. So I thought that was novel.
Jamie,
anything else on? Go ahead,
wetland agent. I might just take advantage of the opportunity to ask Mr. Davidson, how long do you think it would take to implement the recommendations in your report?
I mean, the biggest work will be just the putting down there'll have to be some just minor manipulation of the underlying grades, which we talked about in the field, Jamie, which would be, I don't think there's a lot of work with grading there. I think the grades right now are pretty much directing things where you want them to go. So the most of the work would just be bringing in the gravel and just leveling it off. I mean, I don't think it will take too long. I can't think more than a couple weeks, probably even quicker, but it would depend partially on the size of the crew and, you know, how, you know, the operator and
as far as planting, kind of getting near the end of, pretty much at the end of the window for planting somewhere where there's not a readable water resource.
I would probably do planting in the fall. Honestly, the plantings are not intended to provide any kind of erosion control purpose or even ecological purpose. So I would time the plantings for optimal success so you're not wasting your money. The berm will be the physical barrier, and then any buffers that we provide on the area too will be there and installed. It will just be a matter of planting them.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. I was kind of tentatively thinking like the end of September would be a reasonable time to have the work completed with consideration to plantings. Does that make sense? Or is that?
Yeah, no, I think that's fine. I mean, we could bring it back to the landowner. I think he wants to resolve this as soon as possible, and I think he's looking to utilize this yard as well. So I think he would probably be incentivized to do it as quick as possible.
So I guess the question remains or is, clearly there's activity to be completed. The commission could keep it in the notice of violation that it currently is, or have staff draft and issue a cease and correct order to document the activity that is required to be completed, time frame for it to be completed, and with the interest of having that documentation available for all parties, keeping it, you know, in a clear process. And I mean, theoretically, regulated activity should not be occurring without a permit or an order. So I would I would
Right.
recommend to issue a cease and correct order and acknowledge the fact that the owner has been responsive to the commission, has responded to the commission's requests. That understand that, you know, they've indicated their intent to complete the work. It will not be filed on the land records unless anything changes. But I think it's an important way of documenting what is expected for all parties. And it kind of clears up how it should be proceeded via, you know, commission agenda items and things like that.
Commissioner Gopowski, Mr. Davidson, you said that the property owner was very receptive, has been receptive, and I know he has.
Can you move closer to your mic?
The property owner has been receptive to all requests from the commission. Has the property owner had an opportunity to review the report that you provided to the commission?
I sent him the map and said, this is what I intend to submit, and he was fine with it. And we also met in the field together with Jamie and basically discussed all of the things you're looking at right here. And I think he agreed with everything. Right, Jamie? He didn't push back.
I don't know that we went over specifically everything because I arrived a bit late and he had to leave. But we went over most of it, and I think you had gone over the other aspects before I got there. You know,
My second question is for Jamie. Jamie, do you feel that Mr. Davidson's report that he provided will satisfy all the outstanding issues that are related to this particular situation?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. I would defer to the commission on that. However, I would say that all of the areas of concern that I have raised on site are addressed in some manner within the proposed materials or within the report. I think ultimately whether the proposals are satisfactory is up to the commission to determine. I think the one outstanding thing not specifically addressed is potentially that activity that might extend off property. But I think that can be codified in some way in writing. And again, I think that's an important aspect of a cease and correct order. It codifies what is expected of all parties. It provides clear guidance of, you know, it kind of draws the I don't know if you want to call it the starting line or the finish line. But the finish line of kind of the review process and the starting line of the correction process. And I think in general it's a good practice because it's not unique that and I'm not saying it's going to be a problem with this site, but it's not unique for something to be a notice of violation. It gets taken off of the agenda. It doesn't have a set time frame to come back to it. It gets kind of lost in the weeds, if you will. So I think if the commission thinks that there's activity that needs to occur to correct the activity that has occurred, I don't know if I said that right. I'm getting tired. If the commission thinks there's activity that needs to be conducted to correct the activity that has occurred, I think it's important the commission issues a cease and correct order.
This is Commissioner Bassman. The motion was a consideration of the issuance of a cease and correct. I think we've done that. So I guess I'll make a further motion that the commission directs staff to prepare a cease and correct order for 142 Chestnut Street for a just cause hearing to be scheduled June 27, 2024 to meet with the the owner of 142 Chestnut Street to discuss said cease and correct order. Is there a second on that motion?
This is Commissioner.
Gopowski, second.
Okay, take a roll call vote. Commissioner Begeman,
Commissioner Begeman, aye.
Commissioner Papatonis,
Commissioner Papantonis, aye.
Commissioner Meinson,
Commissioner Meinson, aye.
Commissioner Armrod,
Commissioner Ormrod, aye.
Commissioner Gopowski,
Commissioner Gopowski, aye.
Commissioner Basherman, aye. Okay. And thank you for making yourself available this evening, Mr. Davison.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, other business, nothing really to report. Applications for receipt, we didn't have any. Agent reviews, anything pertinent there, Jamie?
72 is old business. Well, not it. Same thing. 6 Hampton Park was just a replacement of an existing deck with new footings, which I approved.
Great. I think I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
I said I'd entertain it.
So as chair, you can
So
close
moved.
you can adjourn the meeting because we've gotten to the end of the agenda.
All right. Bye-bye, guys.
Good evening,
Bye.
everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.